study. It was Bible study time. Let's see what we're watching today. We are watching today Kyle Kalinski's video on the second Gilded Age, which of course we have entered into. We have entered in the second Gilded Age. We've got a Brian Tyler Cohen video talking about a major update involving Kash Patel. We've got why some billionaires are actively trying to destroy the world. Not even joking. This is about accelerationism, and accelerationism. We're gonna go over a little bit of that, and then there's of course the mandatory video of people just being fucking psychotic and saying weird things, and then of course the Cavernacle talking about we need to talk about why no one cares about the death of a health insurance CEO. Said it here first. Just outwardly and openly just saying, I don't have empathy because I can't walk in that man's shoes. What's going on, Tiki? Haven't seen you in a minute, Tiki. Oh, lordy. 2K followers? What the hell, Reverend? Oh, your name is American Prodigy. That's why I can't find you. I can't find you on Blue Sky because I was looking for Reverend Potty Mouth. That would be the problem. That would be the problem. All right, let me make sure all my other buttons are clicked. We're currently clicked on all the correct buttons. We're doing okay, guys. We're doing okay. How are you guys doing today? Is everybody having a good day? What is it, Wednesday? We're halfway through the week, guys. We can do it. For our overlords that make all the money off of us, we can do it. Just for them, though. You can't find me either. I think it's under Progressive Matters, to be honest with you. It's probably at Progressive Matters. It's not the Angry Ginger, unfortunately. I only have like 888 Twitter followers, Blue Sky followers. I'm going to call everything Twitter for the rest of my life. So let's start off this stream the way we're supposed to. What's happening, Nathan? If I didn't say hi to everybody, what's happening, Alan? What's happening, Reverend? What's happening, Jane? What's happening, Tiki? What's happening, Nathan? What's happening, all you guys? Let's start it off right. Let's talk about how's Tired doing? Tired doing all right? Dealing with all this bullshit. Let's start off by listening to the second Gilded Age. It is Wednesday. And Kyle Kalinski talking a little bit about it. The smarter man than I am. And let's start the show off right, because this is where we're going. This is the gist of what is up with this channel right now. Is if you don't believe that we are in the second Gilded Age, we are not on the same page. Did you guys see earlier? Hold on, I want to talk about this first, real quick. Did you guys see earlier, speaking of the CEO, healthcare CEO, somebody asked Elon Musk what he thought about it? I'm not talking about all those like Photoshop tweets and stuff. There's a bunch of Photoshop tweets which are fucking hilarious, but they are Photoshopped from Elon. And but somebody asked him what he thought, and he mentioned, I believe they're called GLPs, glucose lycopene prohibitors, right? That's what Ozempic is, and Wegovy. And here's one of those funny things about MAGA is, I don't know if you know this, but RFK Jr. is against Ozempic for whatever stupid fucking reason that RFK is against it. Whatever ridiculous reason RFK has came up with, his worm-ridden brain has came up with, that he's against Ozempic, he's against Wegovy, he's against all that stuff. I think all that shit's like, I think it's dumb that people are so against other people doing things that they choose to do with their bodies. I don't care if you want to use TRT, I don't care if you do steroids, I don't care if you do Ozempic. Like, that's your body, your choice. You do whatever the hell you want with it. It does not matter to me. You want to take Ozempic because you want to be skinny? Fucking good on you. You want to take steroids because you want to be like gigantic and huge? Good on you. I don't care. At the end of the day, like, I believe that the brain was made for a reason, and we've got this really weird mentality where we get upset with people for what we consider cheating. And I'm not talking about in sports. Obviously, it's cheating in sports. But, like, cheating in life. Like, you know, you see somebody that's lost weight, and immediately they're like, oh, they must have taken a Ozempic. Like, who cares if they did? Who the fuck cares if they did? I don't care. I don't care. Fucking love yourself. Enjoy it. Have a good time with it. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad it made you happy. But anyways, RFK Jr., for whatever fucking reason, his worm brain tells him that people shouldn't be taking Ozempic. And hilariously enough, Elon Musk came out and said the best thing that we can do for healthcare is to allow better access to those types of drugs. And that just goes to show you how chaotic this presidency is about to be. Donald Trump is about to try to be an adult in the room, which is probably going to be impressively hard for Donald Trump to do, considering he's not an adult. He's a gigantic fucking toddler. He's about to try to be the adult in the room to stand between RFK Jr.'s crazy conspiracy theories and Elon Musk's want for people to, like, you know, go to Mars and shit like that. And I think it's hilarious because you know how many people that were RFK Jr. supporters sent me all of this shit about how Ozempic was bad, and like they can't actually tell me why. They just said it was bad. They would just say, well, they don't tell you about the side effects. It's like if you watch any fucking commercial on TV, there's like a 30-minute long fucking side effects part of the commercial. Like they tell you about so many side effects that have anything to do with any of these drugs that most of the time I'm like, even if like I have like skin conditions, I'm like, dude, I don't think I want to try those. Even though like if I go to my doctor, he's like, bro, like nobody gets those side effects. I'm still like, but I saw the commercial and they said like I was going to be bleeding out my anus. And I'm like, ugh, that's not good. But anyways, all of these people would send me like, oh, they're going to try it. Everybody's going to be on the Ozempic, bro. Good. I don't fucking care. Like, but they didn't tell them about the side effects. What are you talking about? They didn't tell them about the side effects. It's on fucking like a half an hour long commercial about side effects. Bleeding from your anus. I don't know if that's Ozempic, just so you guys know. That might have been like Cialis or something like that. Nothing would be weirder than getting an erection and bleeding from your anus at the same time. Sorry for that. Sorry, not sorry, actually. But yeah, anyways, I just thought that was hilarious. I saw that earlier today, and I wanted to mention it, and I wanted to mention it before I forget and ramble on about some other shit. But I thought it was hilarious that, once again, all of these RFK supporters that joined MAGA, and then RFK was forced to eat McDonald's, and now he's going to be taking Ozempic in no time. Anyways, isn't that fucking guy on TRT? Like, he looks like he's on TRT. There's no way he's not on TRT. It's fucking insane. They're all hypocrites. They're all full of shit. It's hilarious. And I think it's amazing that Elon Musk came out and said that, because now all the RFK supporters are going to be like, dude, I was behind Ozempic the whole time. Like, you should be able to do what you want. Like, they're the most hypocritical, short-term memoried dipshits on the planet. And I think it's amazing. I think it's great. It feels good. It feels good to just watch this happen. And I can't wait for them to start eating each other's faces. It's going to be hilarious. What's happening, Tired? Tired has shown up. What's going on? Liz, I am F-I-N-E. Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Hey, hashtag me too. What's this potato chips that cause anal leakage? That was the Oleic. Were they with Oleic, O-L-E-I-C oil? Was that the ones that caused it? And remember, there is gummy bears. Remember, it was the sugar-free gummy bears and the potato chips that may cause anal leakage. That's it right there, guys. That's it. Let's start the show. That's how we start every show. It's talking about things that nobody really wanted to talk about. Oh, all right. Here we go, guys. Let's listen to the second Gilded Age.
Talk about it.
A new hashtag me too.
The second Gilded Age is here. It won't be that long,
I think that might be it.
Until we have our first trillionaire. Trillionaire.
Yeah, isn't Elon today? I think he's valued at $400 billion. Like, one of the things that I think people need to stop doing is they need to stop calling it wealth, because money isn't wealth. Money is a representation of resources, or your ability to gain resources, right? Like, one of the things that drives me nuts is that it's kind of like whitewashing or sane washing the idea of owning or having $400 billion. Is it's just money, bro. I just put it in a bank account. It's inanimate. It's not like it's hurting anybody. I just got $400 billion worth of properties and stuff. Like, that's all, man. That's all. We need to stop referring it to as wealth. He has $400 billion in resources, because that's what it comes down to, is that these people, when you talk about immorality and wealth, you're really talking about immorality and the hoarding of resources. That's actually what you're talking about. You're talking about the fact that because people go, well, so what? They own some stuff, dude. They're fucking hyper hypocritical, because if you ask the same dipshits whether or not they like BlackRock or not, they're like, no, dude, they're buying up all the houses and shit. It's like, it's the same fucking thing, you moron. It's the same thing. If you own $400 billion worth of assets, those are assets that aren't available to anybody else anymore, because this guy has chosen to own all of them, making it harder. Even when it comes to stock shares, when you have somebody with the amount of money of a Warren Buffett or a Bill Gates or an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, and they get into buying stocks on any level, they don't buy 10, which doesn't affect the value of the stock. No, they buy 100,000, 200,000, which causes the stock price to elevate, which makes it harder for a normal person to buy it. Their wealth is actually their ability to get resources. In some cases, literally just resources. And I am just tired of hearing people talk about it as wealth, because it almost like it's sane washes having $400 billion worth of assets while people struggle to fucking find a home. I was just looking at the neighborhood that I grew up in, the shitty neighborhood that I grew up in, not literally the neighborhood, but the houses around it, are like $120,000, $150,000. These are houses that a decade ago, 15 years ago, you could have bought for $50,000. They're $150,000 to live just outside the ghetto. I mean, the houses are still fucked. They're still shit. And that's because these people are buying up massive amounts. Like, I am surprised that BlackRock hasn't came in and just scooped up all of those properties and turned them into fucking casinos. It's time to stop calling it wealth. It's resources. It's resources.
I mean, look, you're talking to a guy. I don't even think we should have billionaires. Never mind trillionaires.
Agreeable.
If we don't do something about this
Extreme, dude. That's so
income
ridiculous.
and wealth inequality, I don't know how the pitchforks don't come out. You know, I don't know how that happens. Maybe we have enough distractions with,
How much money does Putin have? That's a good question. I wonder what his net worth is. Putin is estimated at $200 billion, huh? But really, I mean, if we're talking about like resources once again, Putin has more resources than probably almost any person on the planet, just because he's in control of so much of those resources.
Whatever, Netflix and video games
access.
and TV and that social media, that like we never get to that point, but god damn are we getting wildly fucked over. So let me walk you through this. Wealth of the world's billionaires has more than doubled over the past decade.
Yeah, and how much has it gone up just since the election? Hasn't Elon's wealth increased by $73 billion or something like that since the election? Like, that was a month ago. Like, do you know how long? Like, no, you can't even. You can't even do the fucking necessary math to figure out how long it would take you at your current wage to get $1 billion. And this motherfucker, if I remember right, his wealth has increased by $73 billion in the last month. And there's some right-wing conservative dipshit right now going, well, bro, we earned that. He didn't do anything. Because wealth perpetuates wealth. It's something like 65% of all billionaires inherited their wealth. This fucking myth that these people work really hard, they worked so hard, that's how they got all that money. They didn't. They literally didn't. I saw a fucking story today about the Jersey Mike's guy, the sub place, that said the way he became wealthy was because he got a small loan of $125,000 from his football coach when he was 17. That is not something that is available to me or you. Your football coach is not going to give you $125,000 as a loan. You can't get a business loan from a bank at 17 years old for that much money. No one is going to give you that much. If you have a football coach that can loan you $125,000, that is because your family is connected to people that can loan that much. It's not a feel-good fucking story. It's not like bro was like fucking me or you and he's just on the football team and he's like, dude, I was thinking about making these sandwiches and the fucking football coach was like, all right, I just happen to have $125,000. Would you like it to start your sandwich company? It's not a feel-good story. Our media is full of shit. Our media is full of morons. That's not like a fucking underdog story. It's insane. 73.6 billion in 40 plus a day. Oh my God. Yeah. My baseball coach was like, I don't think you should play baseball. Oh, dude. I'm not going to say what I think about that, Andy, because it'll get me banned on YouTube. But like Mike said, look deep into my eyes. Like the Humanist Report said, look deep in my eyes. You know my answer, okay? You know what I am saying to anybody out there that may or may not ever see him in public.
Driven largely by the accumulation of massive wealth by the richest people in the United States, the Swiss wealth manager UBS said Thursday that the assets of billionaires around the world more than doubled over the past decade. Between 2015 and 2024, the total wealth of billionaires increased by 121%, from 6.3 trillion to 14 trillion. Meanwhile, MSCI AC World Index of Global Equities, which measures the performance of more than 3,000 stocks from both developed and emerging markets, rose by 73%. The planet's total gross domestic product is about 105.4 trillion, with a population of just over 8 billion, underscoring the extreme concentration of wealth among the very richest people. The number of billionaires rose from 1,757 to 2,682 over the past decade, while the wealthiest people in the world boasted significant gains over just the past year. Billionaires' wealth jumped by about 17% in 2020.
Yeah, something that this isn't talking about. It's not talking about it. Is how much that's accelerating, how quickly it's accelerating. It's like, yeah, over the last decade it made that much, but it's got even worse over the last few years. During a time when most of us, well, I was doing okay, but most people were struggling during COVID. And one of the largest transfers of wealth from the bottom 80% to the top 5% happened during COVID. And if you want to know why, it's because of the stock market. It's because of government programs that were taken advantage of by ultra-wealthy people that know how to use loopholes in government, that literally can pay people to take advantage of these things for them. The wealth gap is growing larger and larger, and people are becoming more and more upset. That's why this was such a vibes-based election. It's because people can't wrap their mind around why they're pissed off. They don't know. They can't figure it out. And this is something that I think Kyle Kalinske had talked about in his Bernie Sanders video, is that the biggest difference between the right and the left was the right has a narrative. The right says brown people, marginalized communities, LGBT people, they're the one that are making you feel angry right now. That's our position is, you're mad right now. We know you're mad, and it's because they're eating your pets. Okay? And we all laughed at that. We thought it was stupid, but people are so legitimately upset about what's going on in our society right now that they don't know where it's coming from. They know they're upset, and that's legitimate, but they don't know what they're upset about. And so when Donald Trump walks through the door and goes, it's because they're eating your pets, they're like, I didn't know they were eating my pets, but I'm mad about that now. And on the left, they tried like fucking, 17-page dissertations on, well, the economy is actually pretty good, right? It's like people are pissed off right now, and they have a right to be pissed off, and the right is lying to them, and the left is trying to lecture them. And right now, a lie sounds better than a lecture. And that's why Trump won. Is because, really, to be honest, most people don't have the time, the stamina, the want to really actually look into any of these things to figure out, oh, what you're telling me is that this person, and it seems like it should be fucking common sense to anybody with 2 brain cells left. Oh, this person that makes 400 or has $400 billion in assets, that guy having all of that while I'm down here struggling, that has this effect on me that upsets me. Like, you think that they should be able to do that, but no, instead they're like, no, he's going to make me like him. He's going to make me wealthy. Just offhand, it's trickle down, brother. It's called trickle down for a reason. It comes from him and it comes to me. It goes to me. It's like, no, it doesn't. But it doesn't. We've literally been trying this forever, and people's mentalities are getting worse and worse, and they're getting angrier and angrier, and eventually some motherfucker gets shot. That's what happens. This is a tale as old as time. Like I've said before, Aristotle predicted this shit 2,000 years ago. As the wealth gap grows and grows and grows, the people become more disconnected, more disenfranchised. They feel more and more like they don't have a voice. And one day they wake the fuck up and they go, oh, you know why I'm pissed? Because that motherfucker has everything and I work my ass off and I have nothing. You know what? I think it's about time to do some shit. That's what happens. And it's getting worse. The wealth gap is getting larger and larger over smaller and smaller amounts of time. And that is a recipe for disaster.
24. With the accumulation of wealth among the richest people in the U.S. offsetting a decline in China.
Don't say that to me, Tiki.
U.S. billionaires amassed wealth gains that were 27.6% higher than the previous year, accumulating a total of $5.8 trillion, more than 40% of international billionaire wealth.
Watch that. That's going to make me so upset if Biden
pushed through by President-elect Trump and the Republican Party in 2017 are still in effect in the U.S. tax policy. Analysts have found that the law was skewed to the rich.
How? Why you put yourself down there, bro?
With households in the top 1% of incomes expecting to receive an average tax cut of more than $60,000 in 2025, compared to an average tax cut of less than $500 for people in the bottom 60%. By the way, the tax cuts for the wealthy were permanent. The tax cuts for the working class were not. There was a sunset provision in there for regular people and your tax cuts. As Common Dreams reported this week, the top 12 U.S. billionaires now control...
And that's just another part of what I'm saying there, is that when they make tax cuts for these corporations, what is Trump wants to take the corporate tax down to 15%. And here it is. Once again, this is how dumb people are. They're like, yeah, but he wants to bring the middle class percentage of taxes down to 15% too. 6% on $60,000. So if you're making $60,000 a year, which if you're making $60,000 a year, congratulations. You're not doing too badly, right? In this society. So 10% of 60,000 is 6,000. So 5% of 60,000 is 3,000. So you're somewhere in the range of $3,600, right? For a person that makes $60,000. So if you make $600,000, that's $36,000. If you make $6 million, that's $360,000, right? Like, the further you go up, the bigger that tax break is for you. And most people aren't making $60,000. Most people are making $30,000. What is it? $35,000, I think, is the median average, or somewhere in there, 23 to 35. So most people are getting somewhere between like 1,000 and 3,000, depending on how where you're in the lower middle class or upper middle class, in tax breaks. Meanwhile, the ultra wealthy are getting $360,000 worth of tax breaks. And that's not even considering the fact that they're using loopholes and other things to continue to maintain their wealth. The amount of money that you're getting in difference from the 15% tax that you're getting now compared to the 15% in taxes that they're getting now. By the way, if you're on the lower middle class, you're not even getting the same percentage that I just talked about, because you're paying a lower tax bracket than a 60,000 person does. So you're getting even less. So the less money you make, the less you benefit from that tax break going down to 15%. It's fucking insane that anybody's like, nah, it's a good idea. The more that corporations, or the less that corporations pay in taxes, the more you have to pay. And that bill is going to come due at one point or another. So you can sit there and say to yourself, no, it's dope. We're only going to pay 15. I was paying 21 or 22% last year, but I'm going to pay 15% this year. I'm going to get an extra $3,000 back this year. If they haven't made corporations pay their fair share now, and every bit of that money becomes a part of the deficit, and that deficit, for the most part, is owned by the American people, which, by the way, China only owns about $800 billion of our foreign debt. The American people owe the majority of what we call our deficit, the $6 trillion, $33 trillion in deficit. Most of that is owed by the American people. Do you think that corporations are going to pay it if every corporation's tax cut is permanent, or do you think that it's going to be the lower, middle, and upper middle class that end up paying for it? Because guess what? Your tax breaks, they're not permanent. They're not even close to fucking permanent. They can be tossed out the fucking window at any time. You're going to pay for it.
$2 trillion. 12 billionaires control $2 trillion.
Oh, let's go AOC.
The wealth of the four richest people in the U.S., Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, and Mark Zuckerberg,
love the poorly educated,
has hit $1 trillion. These four men were worth $74 billion 12 short years ago. Stop and think about
Andy,
that.
About that CEO,
these guys,
dude,
these four billionaires were worth $74 billion 12 years ago. Now they're worth $1 trillion.
He's a nice dude.
At the G20 summit last month, world leaders agreed to engage cooperatively to ensure that ultra-high net worth individuals are effectively taxed. Oh, please. Who believes that?
Yeah.
Who believes that, y'all? More.
Nobody.
Unsettling new milestone. Top 12 U.S. billionaires now control $2 trillion in wealth.
Jesus Christ.
The oligarchic dozen is richer than ever, and they are endowed with extreme material power that can be used to pursue narrow political interests at the expense of democratic majority.
That's what I'm saying. What he just said. Extreme material power. Stop talking about it as wealth. It is not wealth. It is resources. It is a voice. The more money that any person has, the more effect on policy and how the country is run, right? Citizens United proved that, right? All those studies that show that whether the majority of people agree or disagree with legislation, it doesn't matter as long as lobbyists are putting money into something, it's going to pass. Like the fact that you can pull all of the voters in or out of a certain piece of legislation and it doesn't change by more than like 1% or 2%, its chances of being successful. Like the main contributing factor as to whether or not a piece of legislation will be passed or will not be passed is whether or not lobbyists are putting money into it. So when we talk about the top 12 U.S. billionaires now controlling $2 trillion, top 12 U.S. billionaires, not world, not global, top 12 U.S. billionaires now control $2 trillion in wealth. Let's remember, that's not $2 trillion in wealth. That is $2 trillion in resources and voice. Because they get to use that money to tell the government what they want to do. While the rest of us sit the fuck down here with our fucking measly paycheck going, well, I hope they listen to what we want them to do. No, they're not going to listen to what you want them to do. They're listening to what those 12 motherfuckers that have $2 trillion in resources. Jesus Christ.
According to the author of the new analysis. The point here is simple. Extreme wealth is the destruction of democracy.
Yes.
You cannot have democracy while having oligarchy.
Yep.
Because what happens is these oligarchs have the wealth and have the power to buy the government and rig it in their favor and screw regular people. And that's what's happening.
Yep.
That's what's happening.
What I'm talking about.
This is a threat to our democratic institutions. Having this much extreme wealth is a threat because effectively you get to the point where one of these oligarchs has... they control the government. And in a sense, they have more power than the government does because they own the politicians. So we're at the...
Look at what's happening right now with Elon Musk. For all the Trumpers out there, are you enjoy watching your boy get cucked? Because that's what's happening. For the RFK Jr. people, like you're getting double cucked. Your boy's on the bottom of the pile. Your dude is not just the bottom. He is the bottom beneath a bottom. Like, he is the double bottom. He don't even have a chance to push back on that. He just taking it. RFK Jr. is so low in the pile that you'll be lucky if he ever comes back out. And if he does, he'll never be the same person. He's going to be used up and then tossed aside. Elon Musk right now is the power behind the government. Donald Trump is going to stand up there and act like, oh, like he's doing what I want him to do. No, Donald Trump's going to be the puppet. Look at all the people. Right now, Trump's cabinet is filled with billionaires, tech bros, and then weird-ass MAGA cult members. That's his cabinet right now. And then sprinkled in with some, like, fucking war hawk conservatives. Because it's like, I better keep those guys happy. But the most influential power right now in our government, and Trump isn't even in office yet, are those tech bros, those billionaires, the money behind the curtain. It's not Donald Trump. And he's a billionaire. But he's like a faux billionaire. The other guys, those are real billionaires. And those guys have all the power.
Whim of the oligarchs, of the robber barons. Just 12 U.S. billionaires now have a collective net worth of over $2 trillion, a figure that amounts to a little less than third
of
total federal spending in 2023.
Those Hallmark movies
according to
fucking
an analysis
been
out
calling out for
Tuesday
a
for
long
inequality.org,
time.
a project of the Institute for Policy Studies. The $2 trillion number is also twice the amount of wealth that the top 12 U.S. billionaires held in 2020. Jesus. So according to this, it doubled since 2020.
Since 2020.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying.
The full list of 12 billionaires includes Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to
We're watching a dude watching a dude.
Billionaire. Here's Robert
watching a dude, watching
Reich.
a dude, watching a dude.
Reich. And here's what he has to say.
Robert's my
when
boy.
When you are
You're
wearing
not Robert.
a Two Blind Brothers shirt,
What the fuck,
you
dude?
know that when
Fake ass Robert.
If you're a regular billionaire, you can afford a private jet. If you're a centibillionaire, you can afford a brand new Gulfstream jet every single...
Okay, what does Centa mean? Is that 100? 100 billion, right? Centa is 100. So he's a quad Centa billionaire of 4 times. Like when we call people like the 13-time reigning champion, he's like the 4-time Centa billionaire champion of the world. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous.
day for more than 10
What up,
years.
Don Cron?
Not sure what you do with a new Gulfstream jet every day, but maybe give one to each of your closest 4,000 friends.
100% gamer.
A regular billionaire would struggle to buy their own professional baseball team. It's sad, I know, but a centibillionaire could easily buy every team in the entire major league. If you're a regular billionaire, you can donate to your alma mater and get your name on a building. If you're a centibillionaire, you could
And that's, to be honest with you, what he's doing right here is the exact reason why a centibillionaire exists, right? One of the things about Warren Buffett that I've always respected about Warren Buffett was that he's kind of just been a dude, he just goes to work, right? Like, I still don't agree. I don't agree with billionaires. I don't know that you can make it illegal, but I'm going to say it's immoral, right? And Buffett has agreed to give away, $140 billion or however much of his wealth that, to philanthropy before he passes and all that stuff. And I do think that there is a right way to go about being wealthy and using that wealth to provide resources for others. I do think that there is a way to do that. But I still think, to be honest with you, that being a billionaire is immoral. Like I've said before, it's a lot like having a store of food that never goes bad and having hungry people sitting right outside and you're going, but what if I need it? What if my kids need it? What if my grandkids need it? What if my grandkids' kids need it? And then in that food just sits inside of that store, never goes bad, never gets used. It's just hoarded. There's nothing that you can tell me right now that doesn't say that that's immoral. It's immoral. So, but one of the things I think about somebody like Warren Buffett is like he still shows up. He still does his thing. I think that the majority of these guys, specifically these tech billionaires, because these tech billionaires are so involved with societal changes, because they're so on the forefront of all the new technologies, whether it's AI or it's green energy or whatever, or quantum physics, all of that stuff, that their ego is directly tied to what they're capable of doing, what their resources can gain them. I mean, it's a huge game and always has been. It's been a game since the days of hunter-gatherers to always be the person that can gather the most resources, right? So now we have this weird fucking out-of-this-world game being played by these tech billionaires where they're literally trying to figure out, like, well, that guy can buy a baseball team. What if I could buy 2 baseball teams? And that guy's going, well, if that guy can buy 2 baseball teams, what if I could buy 4 baseball teams? And then some motherfucker just comes right over the top and goes, what if I could buy all the baseball teams? That's how they want to win the game. Meanwhile, you're like, how do I pay my rent at the end of the day? That's what I'm saying. That's what's immoral. While you're struggling to pay your bills, while your kid gets sick and you're concerned that you can't pay the hospital bills to take care of your child and it might bankrupt you to help your loved one go through chemotherapy, this guy's like fucking playing a game of, what if I could buy the whole MLB? What if I could do that? Dude, wouldn't that be cool? No, you know what would be cool? Is if you used your resources to fucking cancel out college debt for people. You know what would be cool? If you used your resources to cancel out medical debt for people. You know what would be cool? If you used your wealth to make the world a better place. Not to play a fucking game of who can gather the most resources and hoard them like you're fucking Smaug from Lord of the Rings. That's what I think is cool.
Single-handedly give every teacher in America an $8,000
Can't spell
raise
felon
for
without
5 straight years.
E-L-O-N.
Stop and think about that.
What's happening,
If you have over
Terminal?
$100 billion, you can give an $8,000 raise to every teacher in America for 5 straight years.
Holy shit, that's crazy.
How can anybody
you
not
see what I'm
support
saying?
taxing the wealthy and redistributing, giving people health care, giving people a universal basic income check, giving a raise to teachers? To not support raising taxes on the rich is the most cucked shit I've ever seen in my
Thank
life.
you.
It is mental.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Because I have these family members. They will defend the right of a billionaire to their death. All while talking about the price of gas and groceries. They will defend their right to be billionaires. And the reason that they do that is because, like I said, they think that one day they could be that guy. And it's like Legion Miller said, you think you're one good idea away from being a millionaire, but the reality is you're 2 bad ideas or 2 mistakes away from being poverty-stricken. It is much more likely that you are going to go broke than you will ever become a millionaire. And I just mean a millionaire. $1 million. Not 2, not 10, not a billion. I mean $1 million. You're much more likely to go broke than become that wealthy. That's fucking statistically true. Look that shit up.
These are the people who are really destroying people's lives. The Republicans want to point at trans people and immigrants and say they're the reason why your life is all messed up. Not
Jesus,
remotely.
Silent. 450.
It's the billionaires. It's the corporations. They're the ones who've made people's lives a living hell. They're the reason so many people have to work 2 jobs.
Yes.
Again, medical bankruptcies are the...
Dude, listen to what they're telling you now. Who was it the other day was saying, which billionaire was it that was saying the problem is people are lazy. They want to only work 4 days a week. Like, people, like, there are lazy people out there, 100%. But if you think the majority of society isn't just burnt out and exhausted from being your fucking slave, you're a moron. Most people just want fucking things to get a little bit better. They're not asking for wealth. They're asking for stability. That's it. You could make the majority of America happy just by giving them stability. Making it so their rent is paid. Making it so they have electricity. Making it so they can afford food. I'm not talking about fucking taking vacations to Bali. I'm not talking about taking vacations to Haiti or Bahamas. I'm not even talking about taking vacations to the fucking next state over. I'm just talking about taking a Monday off every once in a while. You could make the majority of America happy and marginally more comfortable by making sure that they have health care, that they have access to it, that they know that if they one day get cancer, that there's a potential that they might actually get access to some of these life-saving fucking medicines that already exist. People are not clamoring to become millionaires. People aren't clamoring to be just force-fed cash to make everything better. They're just asking for you to help make society better, so that way they can go to work 4 days instead of 5. So they can see their children a couple times a week instead of constantly trying to balance going to fucking sporting events where your kid's at and making some fucking money to pay your rent. It isn't this like obscene ask. And this is what's making people angry. This is how CEOs get shot. Is you are making people upset because you're looking at the little tiny bit that they think that could make their life better, and you're going, well, maybe if you worked harder, you could have it. Yeah, you know what that gets you? That gets you punched in the mouth. That's what that gets you. If you said that shit to a blue-collar steel worker that just lost his job, well, it's too bad. You should get up. You should already be out looking for another job. While his wife is at home crying, you gonna pick yourself up off the fucking pavement, dog? That's all people are asking for. They're just asking for a little bit of the comfort that you have hoarded away in your vault. They just want just one day off, motherfucker. One day off. But they don't want you to have that. Because if you have that, then the breakneck speed at which they are accomplishing their dreams slows the fuck down. And that's why they don't want it. Because without you, without your hard work, they don't accomplish anything. Because all they are is figureheads. You are the cogs in the machine. And when people wake up and figure out that they're the cogs in the machine, that machine's going to shut the fuck down. Because they're going to stop rolling. They're going to stop doing the work. Believe me.
The number one cause of bankruptcy in this country. Medical bills are the number one cause of bankruptcy.
Bootstrap argument. Yep.
You could wipe all that out. By the way, some Democratic states have already done that. They buy up medical debt for pennies on the dollar and wipe it out.
There you go, Andy.
You could easily wipe out all the medical debt. You could easily... 600,000 homeless people, including, 50,000 homeless veterans? Thereabouts?
What's up,
probably
Bucket?
more
you
than
made
that.
It.
And
playing Animal Crossing.
Centibillionaires
all we want is to
exist.
play some Animal Crossing.
What the fuck are we talking about?
Of course, that's not all you could do. $100 billion is enough to wipe out all the medical debt in the United States.
Look
or
at that.
provide permanent shelter.
That's all I'm saying. For $100 billion, 1/4, 25%, and yes, before some dipshit goes, it's not all liquid assets. I understand that. But you can turn those into liquid assets, my friend. $100 billion. You could wipe out all medical debt for America. Do you know the type of life-changing life... Do you understand how much people's their futures are inhibited by debt? Like, it's not just the physical issue of not having cash, right? It's also the emotional baggage that comes along with that. Like, I've been managing people forever, right? One of the hardest things for me to convince my employees of is leaving emotional baggage at the door. And it's a hard ask, to be honest with you, because sometimes people are going through divorces. Sometimes people got cheated on. Sometimes they lost their mom, lost their sister, lost their child. The emotional baggage that comes along with being in medical debt inhibits people's ability to be productive in society. The happier, the better taken care of people are, the better society is. This is why I've said for quite a while now that when I talk and I criticize the left for certain things that they do, I still believe that the left is the better party because the left still possesses the empathy necessary to create a society where people are happy enough to be productive. because I believe the right's ideology of pull yourself up by the bootstraps is ridiculous, and it needs to stay what it is, a cliche, because it's not reality. You can't tell marginalized communities that have been systemically oppressed for fucking centuries. All you have to do is just work harder, and you'll be like Elon. No, if they work hard enough, they might be able to make it in the lower middle class. And if they work really fucking hard and just like never see their kids, lose a couple wives to divorce because they're never home, fucking sleep at the office, they might be able to be upper middle class. Can you imagine? The reality is that every one of these people that are happy are going to contribute to society, because happy people contribute to society, and upset, depressed, sad, angry people, well, they try to either change society, i.e. Mr. Luigi, okay, or they degrade society, because that's how you become lazy. You become lazy when there's no more hope. Why should I even fucking try? The people that I grew up with, the people that were in my neighborhood growing up with, those people had zero hope. Their ideology, the thing that they believed in the most, was one day they were going to go to prison. And they believed the only way to get out of that lifestyle was to sell drugs. To go buy a double up of cocaine and turn it into crack cocaine so you could double your profits off of it. And eventually they end up in prison. Society gets better when society is better. When people are happy, when people are taken care of, when people are comfortable. Then people take care of each other. It's not pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
And by the way, that $100 billion number, that's
Money does
before
go
you negotiate
elsewhere.
it
You're right.
down. They're willing to
I was
negotiate
wrong,
down to
Bucket,
pennies
you're
on the
right.
dollar. You could probably wipe it all out for fucking $10 billion or $5 billion.
In the United States, or provide permanent shelter for every homeless person in America.
Yeah,
Permanent
millionaires are the
shelter
middle
for every
class
homeless
now.
person
Exactly,
in America with the
Silent.
money from one centibillionaire.
Or buy COVID-19 vaccines for the entire world. Basically what I'm saying is $100 billion is a lot of money. More than 2.5 million times what the average American worker makes. In a year.
Jesus Christ.
So here's the big question. Are these centibillionaires so rich because they work
And yeah, look at that. This is something I've been trying to say for a bit now. This isn't a party-specific thing. You look at it. It's Jeff Bezos. It's Bill Gates. It's Elon Musk. It's Warren Buffett. This is not a party-specific thing, and that's why you saw when that CEO of that healthcare, United Healthcare, when his life was taken. That's why you saw the pushback on Ben Shapiro's videos, where they said, you're so off base with your take on this. That's why when I watch left-wing media, I saw Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania the other day. And I think Josh Shapiro's a pretty sharp dude. I think he's a smart dude. And he came out and he said, this man is no hero. And I said, you, sir, have no connection to real people if you believe that. I get why he says it. He's rich. He don't feel safe no more. Like I said before, if people come out and start saying, you know what? For all you people out there that want to be notorious, for all you people that are doing bad shit because you want a name made for yourself, you don't have to do bad shit. In fact, if you do bad shit, we're never going to say your name in the news ever again. But if you do some anti-hero shit, well, we might just call you a hero. That's what scares people like Josh Shapiro. It ain't party specific. This is class specific. And when it comes to class specific issues, there is a lot of unity at the top and there is very little unity at the bottom. And that has been done on purpose. And there is a reason that Josh Shapiro came out and said he's not a hero. Because when it comes to protecting his bullshit, he will link hands with every other motherfucker that we hate because they feel safe in numbers, which they shouldn't, but they do. And at the end of the day, When Josh Shapiro gets up there, whether or not I thought he was a smart dude, whether or not I thought he was a good pick for vice president candidate, whatever. When he said that shit, I said, brother, you have no connection to the people that you represent if you don't understand why this made them happy. You have no idea. And that is a flaw.
2.5 million times harder than the average American?
Yes, that's the main fucking point.
Yeah, Robert's my
I've been
favorite.
screaming this for a decade now. In the American mind, some people think...
Yeah, same thing
Look,
with Klobuchar.
this is what you're
Same
taught when
shit.
you're a kid,
Yep.
right? The harder you work, the further you go. The harder you work, the further you go.
Liz,
And-
that's a good question.
It's just not true. Some of the hardest working people I know live at or below the poverty line.
Yes. And so there's the conservatives for you, right? There's a conservative argument. And this is what drives me nuts about the right. Like, so many people on the right have this attitude of, like, you just have to, like, work hard. And it's like, oh, okay, so are you wealthy? Well, no. Okay, what do you do for a job? Well, I'm a construction worker. But I have enough. Oh, you do? Because you were just saying the economy is really bad. You were just saying the groceries are too high. You said the gas prices are too high. Oh, but that's all going to change now. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. What are you talking about? It's just insane because that isn't the truth. And I've said this before, like, being intelligent doesn't make you wealthy. Being a hard worker doesn't make you wealthy. You want to know what will 100% make you wealthy? If your parents were wealthy. If your grandparents were wealthy. That'll make you wealthy. If you are well connected or your family is well connected, that'll make you wealthy. But that has nothing to do with hard work. It has nothing to do with intelligence. And it has everything to do with being in a society that he has created these lanes for each type of class. And if you stay in your lane, you're respected. Yeah, I mean that. Like, the upper class actually looks at the middle class and goes, you're doing a good job. Way to go to work every day, 5 days a week, and barely be able to take a vacation. Barely be able to afford the children we tell you should have so that way they can work for us. They'll respect you for it. They'll fucking pat you right on the back, tell you how much they appreciate you, but they won't give you any fucking more money. They won't give you any more days off. But they'll tell you that they respect you, and that's just enough. The middle class is such a beaten dog right now that when they pat you on the head, tell you you're a good boy, you're like, ain't I? Gotta. Hey, did you see that? Elon said that I'm a good boy. He said it. He said it, guys. I'm so fucking tired right now, but he said it. Boy, I really earned that good boy. Didn't I? Like, that's literally where the fuck we're at.
So it's not the case that the harder you work, the further you go.
OnlyFans also,
And
yeah.
I think everybody kind of on some level
There's
wants
always
that to be the
outliers.
case. They want to reward people who
always
have
outliers.
discipline and hard work and try to get ahead and try to play by the rules.
Okay. Reverend's right. I should add one caveat to my argument. You can also get really lucky. If you're extremely lucky, and that's what, like, isn't that the hope that they give you? Isn't that the fucking lottery? Isn't that what it is? It's like, if you get extremely lucky, if you're the one in fucking a quintillion odd, you might get lucky enough to start an OnlyFans. If you're the Hawk Tua girl, have you guys seen the Hawk Tua shit lately? She fucking started a meme coin, and she fucking allegedly scammed all of these people. First of all, I want to be mad at the Hawk Tua girl, but who the fuck bought a meme coin in the first place? Who bought a meme coin? Okay. But specifically, who bought a meme coin from a girl that got famous for saying, you got a Hawk Tua, spit on that thing? She didn't become famous because she is fucking Einstein, dog. But she scammed a bunch of people. And guess what? Here's the fucking insanity of all that. Look at the Kardashians. Like, their dad was a lawyer. Their dad made a bunch of money. And now they are wealthy, and they will always be wealthy because they have established themselves. Our world is going to become an oligarchy ran by tech bros and random fucking people that got fucking famous on the internet for talking about spitting on somebody's dick. That's where our society is going right now. Meanwhile, our asses are fucking unloading trash cans into trucks and being like, well, it's a good job. At least it's got benefits. Benefits that won't fucking even pay you. I was just thinking about this the other day. I have a buddy who works for UPS, and he has a kid who has CF. And I was like, me and him have talked before about how good it is for him to have the benefits that he has through UPS, right? Which they are. They're great benefits. But if you think about it, he can be denied just like anybody else. Even people that have worked their way into good union jobs with really good benefits still one day might be sitting there fucking just wringing their hands while their significant other is dealing with cancer because United Healthcare hasn't decided whether or not, you've paid them enough money and whether or not they want to cover, the treatment for your wife. That's how crazy this whole fucking thing is that even the people that have been lucky enough to get into positions where they have health care, where they can fucking pay for these benefits, still might get denied. United Healthcare was denying 1/3 of all claims. That means that there were wealthy people out there that were like, what the fuck? I pay you a bunch of fucking money. What do you mean no? What do you mean no?
Etc. But that's just not how it is. In fact, some of the people who make it to the top in this system
I'll look and
either
I'll find
were born into extreme wealth and privilege
in the bands and unban him. It's probably still
genuinely
hanging out in the dark chat.
They get lucky, or they're the most shameless and cutthroat, which usually helps you rise up the ranks in capitalism. Right?
What's up, Cypher?
So we don't live in a meritocracy. If anything, we are closer to an anti-meritocracy.
Yes.
These people did not work, what was it, 2.5 million times harder or whatever the fuck?
2.5 million times harder than the average American?
Nope.
Are they really 100 times smarter than the typical billionaire?
Nope.
Personally, I don't think so. The reason for the rise of centibillionaires is that for decades, wealth hasn't trickled down. It's gushed up all the way to the very top. And that's not an accident. As it turns out, the system that the super rich themselves carefully crafted and lobbied for benefits the super rich. And while you may not own more private jets than your average centibillionaire, you probably do pay a higher tax rate. And thanks to legal loopholes and the Trump tax cuts, when the wealthiest Americans die, they get to pass on most of their centibillions to their kids.
Yep, and Trump increased, in Trump's first 4 years, he increased the amount of money that you can pass to your family members without it being taxed. And once again, what would any given conservative say about that? Well, that's a good thing. Why would they say that? Because they believe that it actually affects them. Like, no, dude. You were well within the fucking area of how much could already be given to your kids. You weren't approaching the cap, dog. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but you were not approaching the cap as to how much money that you could give to your kids if you pass away. No, it does not benefit you. It doesn't benefit you in any way. You know what would have benefited you? When a centibillionaire wants to give their money to their children and they get taxed appropriately on it, that's what would have benefited you. That's what would have driven your tax bill down. That's what would have helped get rid of the deficit. But no, you're like, well, it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. You know, what doesn't seem right is that you're so goddamn dumb because our education system is so goddamn poor that you are literally not just holding back yourself, but you're helping hold back generations of society. That is fucking sad.
It's tax-free. We've got two choices as a country. We can tax the richest Americans fairly and invest that money in ways that benefit all of us. Or we can keep doing what we're doing.
I saw it, Don.
And watch
What's
as
up, Denny?
billionaires get even richer while the rest of us get left behind. If you think wealth and power are too
Stan.
concentrated in the hands of a privileged few now, just imagine what a few more years of trickle-down nonsense will bring. Of course, it won't be all bad. At least trillionaire is easy to say.
It's coming. It's coming. Unless we fucking do something about it. It's coming, man.
Quadrillionaire is where I lose my
not
shit.
Justified its existence. It just hasn't. It's so out of whack. It's so insane. It's so extreme. It's at the point where it looks just as preposterous as fucking feudalism did. right? Okay, more. Here, we're in the second Gilded Age, y'all.
We're going to talk about accelerationism in a minute. That's the next video we're going to watch is accelerationism, which is a idea specific to like the tech crowd right now, as far as like they think things are going to be bad, so they want to make it happen faster so they can rip the Band-Aid off quicker. Yeah, we're going to get into that whole thing and where guys like this are a part of what accelerationism is. And when you talk about like billionaires and trillionaires, and then you say something like, oh, quadrillionaire, we'll never see that. The more they push, the harder they push, the more you're going to see things that you're like, that was never going to happen. So don't be surprised if of 20 years from now, or fucking even 10, you're like, actually, a quadrillionaire did happen.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile.
You don't have to pay taxes on inheritance up to a certain price or a certain amount.
Ultra
It's
wealthy
the estate
elites.
tax. I believe I can't remember what the line was, but I want to say it was $15 or $19 million that Trump raised it by. I'm trying to remember. But it's the estate tax. It's when Theodore Roosevelt was busting up the robber barons, he was his antitrust, his estate tax, and then his capital gains tax. Those were the big things. All of them are gone now.
Political corruption, vast inequality.
Well, not gone.
These problems
but they're
are not new.
Practically
In the late 1800s, they dominated the country
Oh,
during
yeah, no,
America's
he's talking about
first
robber barons
Gilded
right now.
Age. We overcame these abuses back then, and we can do it again. Mark Twain coined the moniker the Gilded Age in his 1873 novel to describe the era in American history characterized by corruption and inequality that was masked by a thin layer of prosperity for a select few. The end of the 19th century and start of the 20th century marked a time of great invention. Bustling railroads, telephones, motion pictures, electricity, automobiles, which changed American life forever. But it was also an era of giant monopolies. Oil, railroad, steel, finance. Run by a small group of men who had grown rich beyond anything America had ever seen.
Yeah, look at all those names. You know all those names. You know, like it's like you'll never forget them because they are established in our society as the wealthy and will never, ever, ever, ever go away. They will always be wealthy. One of the things I would say, too, is when we talk about accelerationism isn't just specific to what's going on with tech billionaires. Even Karl Marx believed in accelerationism. Karl Marx believed, if you look at Marx actually said there should be a free market. And the reason he said that there should be a free market is because Marx actually believed that late-stage capitalism would do exactly what it's doing right now. It would cause such a divide between the wealthy and the not that it would create a revolution. And, I believe in Marxism, it's late-stage capitalism leads to socialism, socialism leads to communism, right? And so even for him, he actually believed in using accelerationism to help make it worse so that way it could get better. So he was all for free market because he wanted people to use it to get wealthy, to create a huge wealth gap, and then to have the poor and middle class revolt and overturn it. So, this isn't something that's, specific to certain types of people. It's a human idea. It's accelerationism to guys like Elon Musk are like no-brainers. They're like, of course we should do this. So if anybody's out there thinking like, oh, no, why would they do that? It's like, this is human nature. It's not even specific to them. It is something that humans believe because they want to get it over with before they die. They want all of the good things to happen during their life experience. I mean, people can sit here and talk about religion, about how they think they're going to heaven, all of these things, like they're looking forward to all these things. What they really want is a good life now. And I do mean that, like now. That's one of the problems in America, is America, we vote for a good life now, not recognizing that that's not how anything works. And when people try to sell us a good life now, they're actually fucking lying to you. They're not going to give you a good life now. They're giving you promises now that they'll never follow through on because they're not within their purview. They can't do it. They just tell you that because they know you want it now.
They were known as robber barons because they ran competitors out of business, exploited workers, charged customers exorbitant prices.
Yeah, you gotta get
and
through the
lived
Eat the Rich.
like royalty
We're
as a
currently in
result.
the Eat the Rich.
Money
What's happening, Paul?
consumed politics. Robber barons and their lackeys donated bundles of cash to any lawmaker willing to do bidding
Yeah, 'cause
on
of
their
revolution.
behalf. And when
Yeah,
lobbying wasn't
Reverend.
enough, the powerful
Jumped
turned
right
to
past
bribery,
socialism.
resulting in some of the most infamous political scandals in American history. The gap between the rich and poor in America reached astronomical levels. Large numbers of Americans lived in squalor. Anti-immigrant sentiment raged, leading to the enactment of racist laws to restrict immigration and voter suppression.
Yeah. Sound familiar? It's like fucking spot on.
Largely
Just like, it's like 100% exactly what's happening.
aimed at black men who had recently won the right to vote was rampant. The era was also marked by dangerous working conditions. Children, often as young as 10 years old, but sometimes younger, worked brutally.
Yeah, and if you remember Project 2025, in Project 2025, I think they wanted to make it. Right now, we have OSHA laws that say children 12 years and above are not allowed. Or I'm sorry, 12 years. 12 years is the line. I can't remember what it is. 12 years to 16 years, whatever it is. Can't do dangerous jobs. So a lot of kids can work with their parents in like coffee shops, or they can work in a deli, but they can't operate the meat slicer, or they can't, if they're going to work with somebody who's doing cleaning, they can't handle certain chemicals. Like all of these things that potentially like are harmful for children, they're not allowed to do. But in Project 2025, they want to take away those guardrails so that way children once again can do dangerous jobs. Now, you would ask yourself as a parent, well, why would I want to do that, to be honest with you? Why would I want to do that? Well, the more that they put on you, the more that they can create demand for products and increase prices to make it harder for you to buy a house, make it harder for you to buy groceries, to make it harder for you to pay your bills, the more you're going to find it necessary for your children to do jobs. Now, what are you going to do? Like right now, my kid's 14. She wants to be able to work. She'd like to work. You want to know why my kid wants to work? Because she wants to help us afford things. How fucking insane is that? We're borderline upper middle class. And yet my kid wants to help us by getting a job so that way we can afford more things, so we can go on vacation, so that way we can buy something every once in a while to make us or her happy. That's my 14-year-old's fucking mentality, okay? Like, can you imagine what it's going to get like for the middle class, the lower middle class, as more and more social safety nets are ripped out from underneath him, as more and more billionaires continue to push for the lower middle class to do more work so that way they can go to fucking Mars? You know what's going to happen? 12-year-olds are going to start doing dangerous jobs again, because that's what's going to be available to them, and that's what's going to be necessary because their parents can't pay the fucking rent. That's the whole idea behind this shit.
Hours in sweatshops. Workers trying to organize labor
economic
unions
slavery.
were attacked, sometimes killed. It seemed as if American capitalism
12 to
was
16.
out of control,
16,
and
yeah.
American democracy couldn't do anything about it because it was bought and paid for by the rich. But Americans were fed up, and they demanded reform. Many took to the streets in protest. Investigative journalists, often called muckrakers then, helped
Goddamn
amplify
right.
their cries by exposing what was occurring throughout the country. And a new generation of political leaders rose to end the abuses. Politicians like Teddy Roosevelt,
man.
who warned that a small class of enormously wealthy and economically powerful men, whose chief object is to hold and increase their power, could
And so this is where I'll make my argument for the government. When people, specifically my conspiracy friends, when they say, how could you possibly have any faith in the government? Because people like Theodore Roosevelt did exist. There are people out there that can help us. There are people that are good people. And if we could just pull our heads out of our asses long enough to recognize that the people that you're being force-fed aren't the people, because they're literally the people that have corporate interests backing them. And if we could, vote for our own interests, if we could fucking protest and push for shit that actually needs to be changed, like Citizens United being overturned, and if we could stop cucking ourselves for these ultra wealthy interests, we could actually do something. But we've convinced ourselves that there's nobody out there that'll help us. Yet there are examples in history of people that have done this. Theodore Roosevelt was a great president. He was a very progressive person. He wasn't perfect. He did things that I'm sure I wouldn't like and you wouldn't like either. But he was very, very progressive. And he tried to make a difference. And he did make a difference. And because of that, I haven't given up faith. I do believe that there's people out there that can help us. But if we continue to just let politicians lie to us and bullshit us and fucking, like exactly what's going on with the CEO right now. If you let Josh Shapiro sit up there and go, you're part of the Democratic Party. If you claim that this guy is a hero, I don't want you in my party. You know what your answer should be to that? Okay, fuck you, Josh Shapiro. Fuck you. That's what your answer should be to that. Because you need to hold them accountable. You need to look that dude right in the eyes and go, yeah? See you in 2 years when we vote your ass out. Later, bro. There's not one politician right now that's willing to step up. You don't even have to say, dude's a hero. Not even that. All you have to do is stand up and say, I understand why people are upset. I understand why they felt happy about this. I understand. Because when there's not a single fucking politician out there that has the balls to stand up and say, I know why people are acting like this. I know why they're memeing this shit, while they're laughing, why none of them have any empathy for this guy. That just proves the people that argue with me right. That none of you're all full of shit, man. Because if we can see it, you can see it. There's no fucking way you're blind to this. You're part of the system too. You know that even with your healthcare, you can be denied. Like I said, United Healthcare, 1 of 3. Every once in a while, that's a politician. Okay? Like, you can't tell me that you're not on the same levels, but you're scared. You're scared that United Healthcare won't give you any money. Amy Klobuchar took $16,000. That's right. It don't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It don't matter. If you can't look at everyday citizens and understand why they didn't have empathy for that guy, you're disconnected. You have no idea what society is dealing with. That's crazy.
Could destroy American democracy. After becoming president in 1901, Roosevelt used the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up dozens of powerful corporations. Seeking to limit the vast fortunes that were creating a new American aristocracy, Congress enacted a progressive income tax through the 16th Amendment, as well as 2 wealth taxes. The first wealth tax in 1916 was the estate tax, a tax on the wealth of someone accumulated during their lifetime, paid by the heirs who inherited it. The second tax on wealth, enacted in 1922, was a capital gains tax, a tax on the increased value of assets paid when those assets were sold. The reformers of the Gilded Age also stopped corporations from directly giving money to politicians or political candidates. And then Teddy Roosevelt's 5th cousin,
Franklin. Oh, we can't watch this. This is going to be sad.
You may have heard of him, continued the work through his New Deal programs.
They used to have laws about money in politics. And it was like, sorry, can't do that. It's bribery. Then the Supreme Court, starting in the 1970s and in subsequent decisions, decided, no, money is speech. And you could have unlimited money.
Mark Twain was a socialist?
Super PACs, for example, come to mind. And
it doesn't surprise me, though.
The result is exactly what we're seeing. The result is the second Gilded Age. That's the result. Now, just wait until what remains of our meager social safety net. Wait until they take a hatchet to that.
That's
right?
What I'm
and
saying.
Wait until that first trillionaire happens, which will not be that far in the future. Just wait.
But I think that's a straw right there, to be honest with you. Like, this is what people have been talking about for the last month, right? That Trump supporters don't know. They didn't believe that he'd do all this stuff, right? Like, oh, like, it's Trump. He says stuff. It's not Trump. I've said this before. Trump is not the main character. Trump is a buffoon. Trump is a toady. Trump is the Trojan horse that was used to get tech billionaires into our government. When all these Trump supporters realize this whole time they didn't vote for Trump, they voted for Elon and Peter Thiel and Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and all of these people that they claim to hate. Elon, they don't claim to hate anymore because they're that dumb. They're like, no, like, I hate tech billionaires. Oh, so Elon, the biggest tech billionaire? They're like, no, he's cool now. They're that dumb. These people are dumb, okay? But they think, oh, well, Trump was just saying he's going to deport people. He's going to tighten up the border. That's what he's going to do. He's going to tighten up the, nope. These people want to rip away the workforce that is maintaining the economy within America because they want to force you into those jobs. You know that joke we all make about how white people will never go out in the fields and pick grapes? White people will never do the jobs of the undocumented? Well, that joke's about to become a fucking reality because they're going to rip away your social safety nets, Doge, okay? Government efficiency, get rid of programs, social safety nets. And they're going to rip away your social safety nets. And then when you don't have any choice but to go out in the fields and do those jobs that the undocumented workers are doing that are now wide open for anybody to get, you're going to be doing them. And you're not going to have a choice but to do them. And guess what? There is no upward movement from working in the field. You don't go from working in the field to being the foreman to owning the field. No, you work in the field. That's what you do. And you work until you're broken. That's what you do. And let me tell you this. I grew up in a fucking a town of immigrants. The majority of people that I know ain't as strong, tough, or resilient as those immigrants were. So it ain't going to take years to break those people. You're going to be broken real quick. Real quick. But when you have people like Elon Musk, like Mark Zuckerberg, all of these tech billionaires that are making these decisions, there is no FDR's New Deal. There is no progressive tax. There is no tax on capital gains. All of those guardrails that have kept us sane and semi-safe, they're all going to be gone. Unless people think about what the fuck they're voting for and start realizing Trump is going to deport people because that's what his billionaire friends want him to do. Trump is going to possibly put tariffs on or get rid of the income tax or whatever other dumb fucking idea because those tech billionaires believe in accelerationism. And if they can crash the economy, then they believe that that'll make it that much faster for them to be able to take over and do the things that they want. That is the whole point of accelerationism. We're going to see that in a minute.
Just wait. Because the anger of the American public, as soon as they figure out who the real
that's
enemy
a good call.
is.
Good call,
right?
Bucket.
As
We got to
soon as they
turn them
get
against each other.
That it's multinational corporations and billionaires. Oh, man. It's going to be a tumultuous time to try to fight to get the change we need.
Creating Social Security, unemployment insurance, a 40-hour work
Like
week,
I said, that'll be the
and
straw,
requiring
though.
that employers bargain
When
in
it's all
good
ripped
faith
out.
with labor unions. But following the
People
death
will
of FDR
finally
and
realize,
the end of World
but it
War
might
II,
be too late.
when America was building the largest middle class the world had ever seen, we seem to forget about the abuses of the Gilded Age.
Yeah, because it's rose-colored glasses. Like the middle class, the time that America was its best was when workers were protected, the middle class was robust, and monopolies were being busted up. And for all of the people out there that talk shit about Joe Biden, I'm going to point out one more W. Today, there's an article out that shows that Albertsons is now suing Kroger's for breach of contract. Albertsons has removed itself from the merger and will not be merging with Kroger's. Do you know why? Because this administration has attacked monopolies, including Google, who people claim Joe Biden is in bed with. There's a reason that now Google's not allowed to be, they're not allowed to have Chrome anymore. They're going to have to sell Chrome. They're not allowed to be in the browser business for, I think it's 5 years. That's because of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's administration. Kroger's and Albertsons would have taken up something like 11 to 13% of the entire grocery market, and most economists agree that it would have increased grocery prices across the board. But they don't have to do that. They don't have to worry about it now because antitrust legislation from Joe Biden's administration stopped a potential merging of two of the biggest grocers in the country. But people will never give Joe Biden credit for that. Oh, he did this. Oh, he did that. They'll never give her credit for it. But that's when America was great. America is great and can still be great. But not by fucking electing billionaires to stick you in factories. That's not how it's going to happen. The way it happens is by acknowledging when good people do good things and stop demeaning people just because you didn't like one or two of the things that they did. I swear to God, the right will straight up vote for a guy who does nothing that he said he was going to do, while the left will not vote for somebody who did two things that they disliked. And if the left wants to ever win another election ever again, they'll pull their heads out of their asses and recognize that nobody is perfect. Everybody is flawed. And no president that you ever have will do everything that you like. But when they do fucking 95% of it, you should pat them on the back and tell them they did a good goddamn job. That's Kroger's not merging with Albertsons is big. You might not understand that. I understand why.
Now, more than a century later, America has entered a second Gilded Age.
Lena Khan.
It's also a time of extraordinary invention, and a time when monopolies are taking over vast swaths of the economy.
They want her out.
So we must
reason.
renew antitrust enforcement to bust up powerful companies. Now, another generation of robber barons is accumulating unprecedented money and power. So once again, we must tax these exorbitant...
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so crazy. It's like they're fucking playing in space while you go to work 5-6 days a week just to pay your rent. And you're defending them. They're fucking like, look at zero gravity is crazy. This is so cool. They get to do that shit while you're literally struggling to pay your rent, and then you're voting for them. It's fucking insane.
Wealthy individuals and big corporations are once again paying off lawmakers, sending them billions to conduct their political campaigns, even giving luxurious gifts to Supreme Court justices.
For corporations.
So we need to protect our democracy from big money, just as we did before. Voter
Walmart,
suppression runs rampant in the
Kroger's,
states,
and
as during the first Gilded Age, making it harder for people of color to participate in what's left of our democracy. So it's once again critical to defend and expand voting rights.
Walmart
Working people are once again being exploited and abused. Child labor is returning. Unions are busted. The poor are again living in unhealthy conditions. Homelessness is on the rise. And the gap between the ultra-rich and everyone else is nearly as large as in the first Gilded Age. So, once again, we need to protect the rights of workers to organize, invest in social safety nets, and revive guardrails to protect against the abuses of great wealth and power. The question now is the same as it was at the start of the 20th century. Will we fight for an economy and a democracy that works for all rather than the few? We've done it before. We can and must do it again.
Just to put it in perspective for you guys,
Reparations is my man.
The bottom 80% of the country holds 7% of the wealth. The bottom 80% holds 7% of the wealth.
Once again, I just want to keep saying this. It's not wealth, it's resources. The bottom 80% of American society has access to 7% of the resources. Think of it in that manner. Think of it in your daily life. Think of it this way. You have 7% of the access to housing. You have 7% of the access to electricity and life-saving utilities, things that running water, clean water. You have access to 7% of a chance to take a day off or get a vacation or potentially be sick and have access to health care. You have 7% of all the resources, and that's being divided among 80% of our society. Stop calling it wealth. It's not wealth. It's your ability to access the very means to live a happy, comfortable life. It's crazy.
There's that RAND study that we always
Lady
cite.
Freedom.
The top 1% in this country effectively stole $50 trillion from the bottom 90% since 1974. So what that means is every working American would have an extra $1,144 per month every month for the rest of your life if we just had the same income disparity as we had in 1974. Think about that. The top 1% holds 30% of the wealth. That's $43 trillion.
Yep.
The bottom 50% holds just 2.6% of the wealth. So what I'm trying to get across to you,
The top 1% has access to $43 trillion worth of resources. That's fucking insane.
is that however bad you think the income and wealth inequality is, it's worse. It's worse. It's preposterously out of whack, and this is the source of so many problems. 3 of the richest billionaires combined have more than the bottom 50% of America.
So once again, put that into resources. And this time, put it into resources as far as lobbying goes. 3 billionaires have more voice than the bottom 50% of society. 3 people in our country have greater access to making changes within our government than 50% of our society. 3 people versus 50%. If you want to really actually understand why it feels like you're angry, why it feels like you don't have a voice, why it feels like you have to struggle every day just to survive, it's because there's 3 people in this country that have more access to changing things, to living a happy life, to getting health care than 50% of our entire fucking country. That's why you're angry. That's why you have no empathy when one of these fucks dies. And here's the worst part. When they die, that wealth doesn't get spread out. That wealth doesn't go to the rest of the country. It doesn't go to if it's Warren Buffett, you're lucky he's giving away his wealth. But if it's not somebody that's been at least magnanimous enough to just give it away when they pass away, no, it just goes down to their son, their daughter. Never leaves the family. You'll never see the resources of those 3 people. You'll never even come close to touching the voice that they have with those resources or the comfort that they have enjoyed with those resources. They are so far out of your reach that they might as well be on fucking Mars, because the only way you're ever going to touch them is with the help of another billionaire like Elon Musk deciding, you know what? You can be in the club. I'll bring you up. And you know what the chances of Elon Musk recognizing your ant ass down here with all of us other nobodies? It's 0.0000000 for fucking ever 1% chance. You'll never be recognized by Elon Musk. He doesn't give a shit about you. He doesn't give a shit about your kid with cancer. He doesn't care about your wife that died or how you fucking, you were fired illegally from your job. He don't care about any of that. He only cares about making more money so he has more access to the government to make changes he wants and to the resources that make him feel comfortable. That's it.
And again, if you think, well, look, they work hard, they made it to the top, they're the smartest, they're the best among us,
Night,
wrong.
Paul.
In fact, we
Appreciate
know
you.
the numbers. 60% of billionaires came from extreme wealth and privilege. 60%.
There you go, 60%. Yep.
Did you know that in the wake of the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and the
3
Great
short
Recession,
grunts silent.
during the recovery, 95% of the economic gains went to the top 1%.
Crazy.
Hello, America.
95%
yes,
of economic
it's
gains
really
went
me,
to the top
George
1%.
Washington.
I mean, 60%. Did you know that in the wake of the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, during the recovery, 95% of the economic gains went to the top 1%?
And that's because, what did they do? They own stocks. And that's another lie that you get told. Well, if you're just smart enough to play the stock market, bro, you'll be wealthy too. You don't have the money to lose in the stock market to gain the education you need to be good at you. Do you understand when it comes to the stock market? You need a book like this. Oops, dropping stuff. This is like the first book you need, okay? This is the first book you need. You see that? You see how big that book is? How long do you think it takes to just read this book? How long do you think it takes to then learn all the things in this book? And there's more. This isn't the only book I have on stocks. And with all that being said, you still need to have the money to invest in stocks. Where I got the money that I got to invest in stocks was through the stimulus packages that happened during COVID, because I was forced to work all the way through COVID. I was an essential employee. I was a hero during COVID. So I had my stimulus checks, and I still had the money rolling in from my normal job. And I do get paid pretty well for my job. Not great. I'm not wealthy, but I get paid enough to have my home, to feed my children. But if I have a medical scare, I'll be right down in the bottom once again. But lucky enough, I had $1,000 or $2,000 that I could invest, and I turned it into like $5,000. But that was with a ridiculous amount of hard work. I spent my every off hour reading and playing the stock market and figuring out how to... I spent hours listening to people talk about charts. I have things in my head about charts now and candle patterns that will never, ever go away. This isn't something that a lower middle class person that grew up in an impoverished family is going to just pick up and just make themselves wealthy. You just got to try, bro. Like, that's all you have to do. It's that easy. No, it's ridiculous. The reason that 95% of the wealth went to the top 1% is because they've been playing that game longer than you've been alive. And they'll continue to get 95% of the wealth every single time there is any type of catastrophe or any type of drop in the market. If anybody knows anything about short sellers, then you know about even when the market goes down, these people make money. They know how to make money off this. If you're a everyday person that has just figured out how to just barely make any money off the stock market going up, the moment the stock market drops in the toilet, you have to learn a whole new set of rules. How do I short stocks? What's a put? What's an option? It's not a pull yourself up by the bootstraps, just figure it out, you'll be okay. No. 95% of that wealth went to the top 1% because they own the game. It's their game.
I mean, it's preposterous. It's preposterous. And as
it
they
is
pointed
a
out,
very long and boring book.
The richest 400 Americans
exactly so.
have an effective tax rate of 23%.
Yep.
And the bottom 50% have an effective tax rate of 24.2%. So in other words, the bottom 50% pay a higher effective tax rate than the richest Americans.
Yeah, it's a Buffett rule.
It's beyond
Buffett
parity.
called it out about his secretary.
So how do we get to this
more
point?
Taxes than
Very
he does.
simple. War on unions. There was a war on unions. Private sector unions used to be about 33% of the workforce. It's down to 6%.
Yep.
And then, of course...
And part of that, there's two things to that. One, I will readily admit that unions also have been in the pockets of big money for a while and don't always fairly represent their employees. But with that being said, you need to be able to hold both these ideas in your head at the same time, even though you might disagree or might say they conflict. And that is, yes, unions are less effective than they used to be and are inhibited by their own want for profit and wealth, but also they are incredibly necessary to the bargaining power of everyday average Americans. Because the more people that are unionized, the more of a voice you have. It's just like the idea of BlackRock. BlackRock takes a bunch of billionaires and just sticks them all together, and now they have more power than anybody else in the world. You can do the same thing as an American, as an average everyday citizen. You can join unions, you can support unions, and the more of you there are, the louder your voice is, the more you can affect the people that run the unions. These are the things that you do have access to. They want you to believe that you should play the stock market, and what you should really be doing is supporting unions. They want you to believe that you can become a billionaire just like them if you just work hard enough. And what you should really be doing is trying to get Citizens United overturned so you have more of a voice in legislation and the people that get elected.
Corporations and billionaires bought the government. So they rigged it. They give themselves tax cuts. They give themselves corporate welfare. When stuff goes belly up, they give themselves bailouts, right? Privatize the profits, socialize
have a
the
job,
losses.
read, and have kids. Look through
And
the
that's how
CV.
you end up where we
It
are.
is true, the people.
So, look, we know what the solutions are. We know you got to get money out of politics and
The
get clean
trailer park
elections.
does
That's a
show
given.
through on
We
me.
know you need strong unions. Every worker should
very
have the
strong.
right to join a union. We know you need a higher minimum wage. We know you need universal health care. We know you need Social Security for all.
Yes.
This is the kind of stuff that you need. This is the kind of
Yes.
stuff that you need.
Fucking preach,
And unfortunately,
Kyle.
we're going in the opposite direction now.
Yep.
Now you have the richest man in the world, oligarch Elon Musk, buddy with Donald Trump, who's also a billionaire and bought by countless special interests and corporations and other billionaires.
Yep.
And they're going to move us in the other direction. And so the second Gilded Age is here. And for the near future, it's only going to get worse until we fight back effectively.
Yep.
All right, guys. That's the show, y'all. Love y'all very much. Sorry to end on such a down.
He's in, and we're just getting started. I know most of you know who Kyle is, but I always feel it's appropriate. This is Kyle's channel. If you don't know who Kyle is and you like the video, go like and subscribe to his channel. What's Kyle at? 1.43 million people. Kyle's got 1.5 million over there. I'm struggling at 22K because I'm taking a little bit of a break from making videos. But let's watch this one since this goes along with what I'm talking about. Politics Girl was interviewing a woman from Indivisible, a group that helps everyone get involved in their community. And that's what we got to do. That's like, they want you to believe that you getting together and being an activist for protesting, voting, they want you to believe that all of those things are inept and they don't do any good. That's what they want you to believe. And as long as you fall for that, then they retain all the power. You have to realize that if you want to make change, it is hard work. It is difficult. It is scary sometimes. Look, I mean, end of the day, with me up here, like talking about stuff, like I know you guys might think it's like, you know, me being like being dramatic or whatever, but it's like sometimes I think about it. I'm like, what if, you know, people got into power that wanted to silence people no matter how small their voice was, you know? Like, you know, that's why I own a gun. You know, it's like, because what if somebody wanted to come to my house and take me from my family? And, you know, I know it sounds dramatic. I know it sounds crazy. But these are things that have happened throughout the world for all of history. And to believe that they'll never happen here in America is, in my opinion, it's fallacy. I think that it's a mistake to believe that it can't happen to us because we're in America. I think that's a horrible fucking mistake to make. This country has all of 250 years of history, and that history is riddled with people being taken advantage of, being harmed, being silenced. I mean, if you don't believe that some of these things can happen here in America, then you're going to probably be one of the people that help make it happen here in America. So this is a follow-up video to that. And this is a video on accelerationism. What is this guy's name? He's probably got like 1 billion guys too. He's got 2.2 million. 2.2 million! That's a lot of followers, man. And I love seeing guys that have this many followers are actually speaking, you know, doing a good job. Like talking to people about things that are really hard to talk about. Gamer says if you can't pay a living wage, your business should not exist. Yeah, I agree. I work for a really small grocery store. Not really small. I'd say middle size, actually. We're not a small store. And we pay well above minimum wage. And we're in California where minimum wage is already really high. I think minimum wage right now is $16 an hour. On average, the people that work at my store after bonus make like 20 or 21 for the most part, I think. Somewhere between, like, brand new employees probably make somewhere between 18 and 19. Most employees probably make between 20 and 25. But the reason that we're like that is because we know that happy workers create a great environment in our store and make the store more successful. And because we've used that as our business model, we've been very successful. You know, since I've been there, I've been on almost 20 years now, and I've come from the days of it being practically a bodega where items sat on the shelves for so long that there is literally dust on them and old price tags, to now a time where it's hard for us to keep products on the shelf because people like coming in the store. It is 100% an example of how when you take care of people, they will take care of you. And I don't mean just my employees, but also the customers that come through the door, the community that we live in. Like, having a symbiotic relationship with the people around you will make you successful. Somebody told me a long time ago, if you want to be successful, the best way to become successful is by helping other people become successful. Like, your win is my win. Your success is my success. And when we start putting all of our eggs into the basket of billionaires that don't want to even help out the people that made them who they are, that's when we lost the fucking plot, dude. Like, we don't even understand anymore. We don't even recognize our own fallacy that we believe that this guy supposedly supports you but won't even pay you a living wage. He doesn't support you. That should be fucking readily apparent. But for some people, somehow, they still don't get it through their head. They still look up at that guy all the way up there and go, man, I could be like him if I just work hard enough. One of the jobs I came to when I first moved up here, I moved from a bigger city where I was a little bit of a problem. And I was doing some things that one day were going to get me put in a place that I didn't want to be. Either in a hole or in a cell. And when I moved up here, one of the first jobs I got was at a bigger grocery store. And it wasn't union. And I think the minimum wage back then was $7.25. It was a long time ago. And I started at 8. When I walked through the door at 8, there was a woman that I worked for, and she made $10 an hour. And I go, oh, you make 10? That's pretty good. You're the manager of the department? Yeah, I'm the manager of the department. I'm like, wow, well, I would think you make more for being a manager of the department. She goes, oh, no, it's pretty good. They take care of me. I'm like, how long you been here? She said, 10 years. In 10 years, she was making, as the manager of the department that I was working in, $2 an hour more than I started at. While I was there, they made the mistake of telling me that if I hit certain levels that I could get raises. Within the year or so I was there, I had worked my way all the way to $9 an hour, because every time I did something, I went straight to the office and said, I will get the raise that you promised me or I will quit. That end of the day, that's how I've always been. I'm very upfront, I'm very honest. I work very fucking hard and I expect to be taken care of. And then this union came through and they said, how much do you make right now? I said, I make 9. They go, what do you think your average everyday stalker makes at a union job that's worked as many hours as you do? And I don't know, man. At that time, I believe it's somewhere between $15 and $18 an hour. And I was like, whoa, no shit. And he's like, yep, you're being paid half what a stalker at a place that's worked as long as you have is being paid. I go, man, that's crazy. So if you can imagine that, if I was supposed to be making $15, $18, you can imagine what that woman who had been there 10 years managing the department, this was the number one store in that chain. The number one store in that chain. And she was making $10 an hour after 10 years. Now, the story gets worse. Because during that time, the union came in and they said, we would like to unionize us. How many of you guys would be interested in doing that? A bunch of us. I worked with 6 or 7 of my friends there. Crazy times. It was really crazy. We said we would, and it was just enough of us to get the process started. So we started having meetings with these union members. And, these are like your old school Italian dudes that, like, come over to the pizza place. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get you guys all involved. It's going to be all about you guys. So we did that for a little bit until the owners of the store were contacted and they were made aware that there was an attempt to unionize the store. And then those owners started going around to people and started saying things like, how long have you worked here? Haven't I taken care of you? Am I not like your family? You would take from me. If you force us to unionize, we would have to close the store. We'd have to fire people. You wouldn't want us to do that, would you? And I thought, there's no fucking way these people could fall for this. In fact, one of the managers came to me and said, hey man, I've heard that you want to vote yes on this union. What if we made it worth your while? I actually said, yeah, go for it. They gave me a raise and I still voted yes. Because that's the kind of asshole I am, okay? I was like, I'll take your money and I'm voting for the union. That's what you fucking get. Long story long, they voted, and they voted not to unionize. There was literally a lady there. She was the refrigerator manager, I think, who would limp around because she didn't have health care to go to the doctor to take care of her bum leg. She'd fucking limp around the store because she had no health care. I mean, zero, none. Didn't even qualify for government health care. She would have got benefits. She would have got health care from the union. She voted no. I went to these people afterwards. I was like, tell me you didn't vote no. And they're like, I couldn't bring myself to vote yes. I couldn't do it to these people. I couldn't do it to these people. Are you fucking insane? How much of a browbeat dog do you have to be to not have health care, to not be able to take care of yourself? Meanwhile, by the way, I went to the owner's house because I knew his son. We became friends with his son. And he said, I'm going to show you something. You can't tell anybody about this. So we go out to his dad's house, the owner of the store. Really fucking nice house. Big house, beautiful windows, large property. And he pulls back the dust cover on like a brand new BMW. Expensive BMW. He goes, it's crazy how my dad doesn't drive this to work because he doesn't want anybody to know about it. Because he always just drives his truck. Because he had like an older truck. So that way he could tell these people that they were taking advantage of him if they voted for the union. That's what people are doing right now. You're voting against health care for yourself. You're voting against better wages for yourself. And you're doing it all because you're going, well, they earned it. I don't want to make their life worse by trying to make my life better because they earned what they got. No, they didn't. They stole it from you. And they're hiding their BMWs. Well, these ones, fuck. Elon's not even hiring it. Elon doesn't even have to hide the BMW, and people are still like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want fucking... I might one day be like him. Anyways, let's watch a video now on why they're making that shit happen faster.
Billionaires are actually trying to destroy the world. Like, have you ever seen some of the decisions that the rich and powerful make and think to yourself, what are they thinking? Are they trying to make everything worse? Actually, yeah. Some of them, anyway. But why? Why would somebody actively try to bring on the collapse of society? Well, there is a kind of logic to it. Let's say you have colon cancer. You got a tumor. One way or another, you're going to have surgery. It's going to be painful. It's going to be scarring. It's going to suck. But you have to do it. Would you rather do it early when the problem is small, or wait till it gets huge and the surgery becomes life-threatening? Early, obviously. That's why they push so hard for colonoscopies. Well, some people believe, for reasons that we'll get into, that societal collapse is coming, that it's inevitable, that our current path is unsustainable, and if it's going to happen anyway, you might as well do it early and as fast as possible. Believe me.
Yep, and that, like I said, even this isn't a left wing, this isn't right wing, this is across the board. Later, Bucket. Love you, Bucket. This isn't left wing, it's not right wing. This is society. And the politics of billionaires there's no political party. Elon Musk doesn't belong to the right. He doesn't belong to the left. Jeff Bezos doesn't matter if he owns Washington Post. Doesn't belong to the left. Doesn't belong to the right. They all belong to the ideals of techno-libertarianism. They all believe that being the people with the most money in the world, a la the most resources or control of resources and biggest voices in the world, that they should get to do whatever they want with no guardrails. Like I said earlier, even Karl Marx believed in accelerationism. It's not party specific. It is human specific to want the things that you want to happen in your life as fast as possible so that you can enjoy them. This is what this is going to be about.
Of course, that a better world is on the other side. A
Later,
world where we
Tiki.
can fix the mistakes that we inherited and remake it in our own image. This belief system, or philosophy, whatever you want to call it, is called accelerationism.
And when you hear people say things like, oh, I don't, believe in climate change. Well, you take somebody like Elon, who genuinely believes in climate change. You take somebody like Joe Rogan, who genuinely believe in climate change, right? And you ask yourself, well, why the fuck would they support all these like crazy things, right? It's because it's a faster, they see the pros of saying to themselves, well, I don't really give a shit if the world goes bad fast because I have the resources to keep myself and the people that I care about safe. And the rest of these people, all they matter for is labor. They're just here to build my robots. So if I can build enough robots, create access to safety, whether it's on this Earth or perhaps on Mars, and I can do it quicker than shit by just pushing really hard, really fast, then it doesn't matter to me what happens to this world. That's accelerationism.
And it's a whole thing. Yeah, it's a strange kind of political philosophy
400
because it's
billion
being embraced
today.
by the extremes on both sides. Like, they say you can go so far right that you wind up going left again and vice versa. Well, this is where the two extremes meet. So since we're about to head into yet another most important election year ever, I thought I would take a deep dive into accelerationism. Who's behind it, where it comes from, and why it's the worst kind of doomsday prophecy. The self-fulfilling kind.
Yep.
So before I jump into this, I just want to say this is not a political channel. I generally try to keep my political views out of my videos, though.
Good luck with that, bud.
Up every once in a while.
Every fucking channel's a political channel now.
And for the most part, this isn't going to be a political video. It's really more about society and the future and where things are going, but there's definitely political elements in it. So if you're the type of person whose comments explode into all caps at the mere acknowledgement of an idea that you don't agree with, I suggest maybe you take an aspirin. They really help prevent strokes. Despite the ism in the name, accelerationism isn't so much a movement as a concept that can be applied to any political leanings, hence the fact that it's been embraced by both sides of the political spectrum.
Yeah,
if left is blue and right is red, then accelerationism is magnum. The basic gist, like I said at the beginning, is that if a system is doomed to fail, accelerating that system will help it fail faster. Real quick. Exactly how you do that.
As I'm watching Just Scott, I remember, if you guys think he's funny, he is kind of funny. He's got a very kind of dry sense of humor. I like it. If you guys like it, here's Joe's channel. Apparently it's not political, even though it talks about politics, because every channel talks about politics now.
Do that will vary on the system, but the goal is the same. Accelerate the system to the point that it can no longer sustain itself and watch it collapse. The term itself is fairly new, but this concept's been around for a long time. Actually, one early example that we can point to is none other than Karl Marx. In the same year the Communist Manifesto debuted, he released a set of statements that might be surprising today because they're actually very pro-capitalism and free trade. But they make a bit more sense next to his belief that capitalism, quote, pushes the antagonism of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. In other words, by favoring free trade, he was hastening the revolution. He advocated accelerationism long before it had it.
Once again, like I said, sounds familiar, right? Like these are the very things that people are constantly coaching society for, is we need to have this free market. We need to be able to just do whatever. And the funny thing is once again, the vote, the proletariat, is the one who picks it up and runs with it because they think, wow, here's these really intelligent people. They're billionaires. They made a bunch of money. They're smart. They know they're saying these things, so it must be true. And the reality of it is they're the ones that benefit from these things. You're not the ones who benefit from these things. And all it does is continue to create this ever-widening gap. So the question is when it gets to a certain point, whether or not you are the bourgeoisie or you're the proletariat. Because it's going to come out one way or the other. Aristotle predicted this 2,000 years ago. It's either going to end in oligarchy and total control with billionaires. Obviously, in Aristotle's time, there was no such thing as a billionaire. But the equivalent as such would be a billionaire today who would rule this country as oligarchs, which is what we're looking at right now. Or the potential of the proletariat uprising and taking over and extinguishing the billionaire class, which would most likely end in something akin to communism. Obviously, both outcomes, things that Aristotle thought were incredibly bad, and I do as well. Because obviously in most communistic societies, even though it's meant to be seen as being, the masses owning the rights to property or the rights to production, it actually, obviously, for the most part, as we've seen in our history, turns into just another authoritarian government. So the ideas of Aristotle were pretty much the ideals of America, and that is pure democracy or direct democracy is not the way. It turns into one side or the other, ending up taking power and then inevitably ending badly. And instead, his ideas were kind of the ideas of our founding fathers, and you can imagine that most of our founding fathers probably were aware of Aristotle's works, as everyone has been for thousands of years now. And that is that a good constitution is the foundation of creating a democracy that does not degrade into either a communistic society or an oligarchy. Now, obviously, Aristotle didn't talk about communism. That was something that was later referenced, further into our history. But he had the same ideas, and that was when the poor, the working class, rise up because of an established wealth gap between them and the ultra wealthy, and instead drag them out in the street and shoot them in their face, a la Lenin. And even though the ideas of communism weren't included in the works that I've read from him, he still had the right idea of it. And it is what we're looking at now. And luckily for America and many countries across the world nowadays, their ideals of what their government isn't pure democracy or direct democracy. It actually is established on some foundation. Ours being as good as it is because our Constitution was actually really well written. Our structure for our government was actually really well maintained. And when you get to actually get down into the bare bones of our judicial system, when it's used correctly and not used for nefarious purposes or influenced adversely by too much money or dark money, it actually works really well. But that's very rare. It's few and far in between, right? Because nowadays, because of the overarching effects of ultra wealthy people being able to influence our judicial system, being able to influence our politics, being able to influence our everyday lives, we are seeing the crumbling of the boundaries that our founding fathers worked so hard to create, and the people throughout our history, like Theodore Roosevelt, worked so hard to maintain. And we are feeling that anger, that disappointment, that disenfranchisement right now more than we have ever felt it before. Whoops. Sorry, Joe.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, it's a strange kind of political philosophy because it's being embraced by the extremes on both sides. They say you can go so far right that you wind up going left again and vice versa. Well, this is where the two extremes meet. So since we're about to head into yet another most important election year ever, I thought I would take a deep dive into accelerationism. Who's behind it, where it comes from, and why it's the worst kind of doomsday prophecy.
And when he said that, one of the most important things people need to understand is when I say that MAGA really did create a unity party, this was a home for the tech billionaires. It was a place where Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk could come together with the same exact opinions and wants and needs without having to have a party in between them. MAGA was like this empty vessel. I think, who was it? It was DeSantis called them a listless vessel, right? And they were. MAGA was a listless vessel of sorts, just drifting upon the sea with a bunch of conspiracy theorists, disenfranchised Bernie voters, disenfranchised conservative voters, and they were just kind of drawing in this real mentally weak foundation. This is why we call a lot of MAGA supporters dumb. It was an incredibly mentally weak foundation, and people in the ultra wealthy class, the billionaires, found their vessel. It was just floating out to sea with no real captain. They're quacked in. No real captain. Just Donald Trump running around yelling at people for not doing their jobs right, blaming everybody for why the vessel wasn't getting it to its destination. And good old Captain Elon Musk, Captain Zuckerberg, Captain Bezos just swooped out of space, landed on the ship and said, I got this. Let me take the reins. And then they put a fucking nice little hat on Donald Trump, a fucking fake Burger King crown, gave him a fake wheel to steer, and said, don't worry, bud, you're in charge. We're going to be over here. Don't even worry about what we're doing. And then they steered the vessel. And that's where we're at now.
The self-fulfilling kind. So before I jump into this, I just want to say this is not a political channel. I generally try to keep my political views out of my videos, though it does pop up every once in a while. I know because I hear about it. And for the most part, this isn't going to be a political elements in it. So if you're the type of person who applied to any political leanings, hence the fact that it's been embraced by both sides of the on the system, but the goal is that might be wokeism, just to name a few. One could make the argument that accelerationists do, but the same concepts have been applied to all kinds of societal systems, including racism, sexism, wokeism, just to name a few. One could make the argument that there's a kind of technological accelerationism inherent in the talk around the singularity from people like Ray Kurzweil, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, all those guys. The idea that the singularity is coming, that superintelligent AI is inevitable, and the better option is to help it come about so that we can shape what it's going to become. And then whatever problems arise from it, we need to start working now to innovate our way out of it. Yeah, so far this might not sound too crazy. Wait for it. But stepping back, the actual term accelerationism has been attributed to a 2008 blog post by critical theory professor Benjamin Noyce. In the post, he cited Marx and some of his own earlier writings, though he did later admit that he may have accidentally gotten that term from someone else. Yeah, there's a fantasy novel called Lords of Light from 1967 that uses the term. It was written by Roger Zelazny, although he uses it in a much different way.
Dude, so much of this stuff comes from sci-fi writers. I explained this the other day to somebody as it's all the people that grew up getting bullied for being Star Trek fans or Star Wars fans or Peter Thiel's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. It's all those people that read these books. Ray Kurzweil is a fantasy writer. I actually like Ray Kurzweil. They all were these types of people that believed in all this stuff, were made fun of for enjoying all these things, and then worked really fucking hard to find themselves in a place where they could own the rights to change society to be something that they... So there's a very, in my opinion, almost a satanistic tilt to what these people are doing, that they don't seem to care what's going to happen to anybody else when it comes to these things. Like for me, I'm one of these people that's I'm pretty optimistic about AI. I think that it could be really, really helpful. And I think that it could help deal with things like climate change. It could help deal with things like creating a 4-day work week, if not even just putting us in a place where UBI takes care of the majority of the necessities of humans. I really believe in a very optimistic purview of AI. But the other side of that is that the people that are creating this AI, in my opinion, seem to have this huge chip on their shoulder and don't seem to care whether or not that people that they may or may not think were the bullies that they see in their head are adversely affected by the results of what they do. I think they do actually literally look at AI as something that needs to be pushed as hard as it can, as fast as it can, and when it creates utter and complete devastation, that they'll figure out a way to fix it because, once again, they own the majority of the resources in this world that are available, and you do not. So you're the sacrificial lamb. They push AI as hard as they can, as far as they can, and then when it gets out of control and does something, you're the collateral damage. And you can be replaced. This is as I look more and more into all of this stuff, the further I get into this, the more it seems really appropriate that right now the party of politics that won was one backed by billionaires. And at the same time, we're coming into this this crossing of paths of the advancement of AI and technological evolution or revolution, depending on how you're looking at it. and those people in power, and how that's going to affect the populace, and whether or not we're going to be a true proletariat that, like I said, just goes to work every day, smokes cigarettes, and kills ourselves from cancer because we have no access to healthcare. Like, I know a lot of this sounds really bad, and I know I'm usually like having fun and joking and stuff, but this is the kind of stuff that I've been looking at lately that seems very pertinent to today's society. And I feel like if I'm not talking about it with you guys and I'm just sitting up here and laughing and making jokes and acting like nothing's going on, I feel like I'm doing you guys a disservice. So I wanted to talk about this, and then we'll get back to laughing at people as soon as possible.
Way. In the book, it's really more about like accelerating human development to a more
James is making
higher
all the
level
jokes we need,
godlike
so.
status. And the accelerationists in the book are the people working to make that happen. Noise admits they read the
TSG and
book
James
and
are
then
making
maybe
all the
kind of,
comedy we need.
Snuck into his brain subconsciously. Who knows? It happens. By the way, if the name Lords of Light sounds familiar, you might be thinking of the movie Argo. That's the one where Ben Affleck played a CIA agent, and they produced a fake movie to get...
And you want to see another place where paths cross? MAGA and QAnon are obsessed with movies. They're obsessed with the Truman Show. They think that, everything that we're doing now is actually all an act, and like people aren't real. They believe in the simulation theories, which I actually kind of do. And then these ultra wealthy tech billionaires also are obsessed with film culture as well. That's why he's bringing up Argo.
Get into
here.
Iran and rescue some U.S. diplomats that were being held prisoner there. In the movie, the script that they were using to make the fake movie off of was called Argo, but it was an adaptation of Lords of Light. So now you know that.
My hair has always been straight,
we'll
but
never
with like a
forget
slight
it.
wave, a bit of frizz, dry
Oh,
ends,
they're
which, according
obviously
to TikTok,
trolling me
means
with their
naturally
hair
wavy
hair
that just isn't
commercials
treated right.
now.
So it was Benjamin Noyce
Dick
who
move.
gave the idea a name, but it was English philosopher Nick Land who took the name and ran with it. It was an idea he'd been playing with
Silent.
for decades, but he just
We're
didn't
gonna start
quite
our
have a
own
name
cult.
for it. Now he did. It was Nick Land who made the Karl Marx
Bye,
connection
lady.
that I talked about earlier.
Appreciate you.
He wrote about it in an article that he wrote called A Quick and Dirty Guide to Accelerationism. He also named Friedrich Nietzsche, Gilles Deleuze, and Felix Guattari as members of the same group. Nietzsche needs no introduction, but I'll take a moment to explain the other two, whose names I'm sure I'm murdering. Deleuze was a French philosopher, and Guattari was a French psychoanalyst.
Welcome to being
And
me.
in 1972, they published a book together where they introduced the concept of deterritorialization. This is the opposite of territorialization, which refers to restraints that keep a system in check. Deterritorialization means removing those restraints. So you can see why Nick Land drew a line from deterritorialization to accelerationism. Could we cram more syllables into these words? In the 1990s, Land was part of a group that was founded at Warwick University called the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, or the CCRU, which sounds like some kind of evil organization from a Terminator movie or something. That might have been on purpose. They fancied themselves as a collective of
we'll
renegade
make 'em plant
academics
food
who
and
came
shit,
together in
Silent.
part to, quote, undermine the cheery utopianism of the time, according to one of the group's co-founders, Sadie Plant. They published
Jesus
numerous articles,
Christ.
held in-person conferences, and reportedly did a lot of drugs. Is that not
Yeah.
everybody's college experience in the 90s?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
The CCRU eventually burned itself out, and its members went on to do other things. But this is where the left-wing, right-wing split started to happen. Another influential member named Mark Fisher started blogging under the name K-Punk. He attracted a following and eventually co-wrote a manifesto that became the foundational document of left-wing accelerationism, or LX. It's Nick Land's writings that are considered foundational to right-wing accelerationism, or RX. Both sides envision a post-capitalist future and a technological singularity. LX is concerned with producing a more equal, more just world after the revolution, and they believe that technology is the key to improving the human condition. Which isn't really that far off from the original meaning from Lords of Light, if you think about it. Nick Land, meanwhile, has gone further to the right. Since 2013, he's actually been associated with a far-right neo-reaction movement, also known as NRX. NRX was spun out of the blog of a software engineer named Curtis Yarvin, who posts under the name Mencius Moldbug. They're anti-democracy and pro-authoritarian, to the point that some of the NRXers actually criticize Donald Trump for not declaring himself king. Yes, the collapse of Western civilization, brought to you by K-Punk and Mencius Moldbug. So obviously there's some dangerous ideas that we're walking into here, but it helps to keep in mind that at least most of these people think that they're actually getting us closer to a better world. And that's based on the idea of the four turnings.
Yeah. This is something also that I do believe in the four turnings. I mean, not 100%. Redonk sent me a video of this guy that went over all this stuff, I mean, like 6 months ago. And I was like, I can't say I disagree with a ton of what this guy believes. And he's going to probably explain the four turnings here in a second, so I won't go off on that, so that way it's not redundant. But there's a couple things about the four turnings that I don't agree with. Like some of the timing of some of the things, just like it seems like all conspiracies, you try to like pigeonhole things into places to make it seem more like it's right, and you don't need to. Like just being basic and like keeping the information like what it is, in my opinion, is a better thing to do. So I don't completely agree with it, but the four turning is pretty actually a pretty interesting theory.
I've been reading this book lately. Not for this video. I've had this for a while. I'm about halfway through it, but I feel like I can talk somewhat coherently about
yes.
it. It's called The Fourth
a doomsday
Turning
cult
Here.
would be accelerationism. Yeah. Because, well, would they? I mean, okay, so I guess it would be dependent on how the members are participating, because in accelerationism, you're actually actively trying to make it happen faster. So if you were a doomsday cult that believed climate change was actually, I'm making this up, so please don't make a cult off of this. Please don't do this to me. If you were a cult that believed that climate change was actually like some god's will, that it was the punishment of our Lord and Savior, as weird as that is, to destroy mankind because of homosexuality, whatever these fucking nuts always believe, right? Then you would do things like you would be against green energy. You would be for coal use. You would claim that there was all these conspiracy theories surrounding green energy, that they're actually trying to destroy the world. So you would be working actively towards creating a Earth that is more unstable to achieve your end game, right? When he brought up racism, sexism, and wokeism, the reason that he brought those examples up was because it's the same thing. It's like you could try to do something good by doing something really bad. So like you could say to yourself, oh, well, I'm going to, start a race war, because if I do that, then it will show everybody how bad racism could be, like how bad it is. And then everybody is going to be so disgusted by how fucked up this was that then people will no longer be racist. The same thing goes for wokeism. You could say that if you were... what is it? Bo the Fifth column is another, it's a term for it. That guy that does the Bo the Fifth, that term stands for something that's also relevant to what I'm talking about, but I can't remember right now. But if you were to, with wokeism, you could say, okay, well, it probably wouldn't be a good thing. The actions I take aren't going to be a good thing, but I'm going to go and I'm going to do all these fucked up things to people that are, that will make people recognize that being woke is actually a really good thing, and that being, just a piece of garbage human being that doesn't care at all about social justice or hates people for their ethnicity or whatever, all those things are good things. Like those people will also realize now how bad it is because I do something so bad. So that's more or less what he's talking about when he's talking about accelerationism. Like doomsday cults, on the other hand, I mean, I think it would really depend on, like I said, what the members are actively doing. Because if you just believe that like the end of the world happens on May 21st, 2012, that's not really accelerationism unless you're actively trying to make it happen, right? If you were doing things to help create a world-ending event on May 12th, 2021, or whatever it is, then that would be, yes, that would be accelerationism. Ends justifying the means. Yeah, exactly. What's the name of the Bible thump club that want to bring about the apocalypse, to bring Jesus back? What is that? That's it's about the resurrection. That's what you're talking about. I mean, you're just talking about a form of Christianity, right? What are they called? I'm not good with theology. I like theology, but I am not good with. I need to do so much more work in theology. But I'm currently stuck in techno-libertarianism, so I don't know. You have to Google that one for me.
And it's written by Neil Howe, and it's a follow-up to a previous book from 1997 called The Fourth Turning by Howe and the historian William Strauss. Now, seeing me hold up this book is causing every single one of you guys to have at least one of three reactions right now. Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, finally. Yeah, just do that.
Most of you is me, right? Like, I do know what it is, but I'm like, hold on. Let me look this up. And he's right. Like the middle guy, you have no idea how many people are like, do you know what that is? Like, it's true. And I'm like I said, I do believe for the most part, but it feels like they stick square pegs in round holes when it comes to the fourth turning sometimes. Some of it is like, I think a lot of it is pretty spot on, but it feels like to make you feel like it's 100%, they stick some square pegs in round holes. Doesn't need to happen.
Find the lowest priced health plans at healthforcalifornia.com.
Shut the fuck
Get
up,
a quote in
Marcus.
30 seconds.
I know who you are.
Find top carriers like Anthem,
Go back to Grey Pill's
Kaiser,
chat.
Blue Shield, and more. Lowest prices, simple process.
This is a polarizing book. To some people, this is gospel. To others, it's garbage on par with the writings of Nostradamus.
My
But to those who are
moratorium on
unfamiliar,
banning Trump
the
supporters
basic gist
is
goes
only
like
when
this.
I feel like
The
it.
theory of the four turnings, which is also called Strauss-Howe generational theory, basically makes the argument that civilization is cyclical, that it operates in cycles. This mostly applies to Western civilization, but very specifically to the United States. These cycles last for about 80 to 90 years, roughly the length of a long human lifespan, and they've named these cycles saeculum, which is an old Roman word that has a similar meaning. And each of these cycles is made up of what they call four turnings. It's kind of like seasons of a civilization. They name those seasons the high, the awakening, the unraveling, and the crisis. And each of these lasts about 20 or 30 years. It works like this. Each saeculum is defined by a major crisis point, a world-changing event that upturns established institutions and is usually punctuated by a massive war, a total war in their parlance. This is the last turning in a saeculum, so they call this the fourth turning. Many proponents of this theory consider World War II to be the most recent crisis era.
And so this is where people think we are today, right? With the potential global conflict, which has already been going on. It has been going on for a long time. So it's a little bit over-exaggerated where we're at right now with the global conflict. But it is on the precipice of becoming a real, actual World War III. But, I mean, by proxy right now, like people like Jamie Dimon was talking about it, it's already happening. The potential for it turning into a global conflict that would actually be something like what the fourth turning talks about is there. And that's why, like, I actually agree with this, because we have seen this before with certain wars in the world, because people always think they want war. It's just like the dumbass idea of a second civil war. Everybody thinks like, it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. Oh, well, if we could just, have a second civil war, then we could just like change everything and then our side would win. That's never going to happen. And if you know anything about the first Civil War, then you know that as far as people being freed, as far as being slaves, like Abraham Lincoln was waffling at some points because he understood that the American populace on both sides, whether it was Confederacy or the Union, grew very tired of the war very fast, because that's what happens with war. When you're actually like pushed into it, it's like being in a fight. It's like you think you want to fight. You think I'd mop that dude up. You know what I would do? Oh my God. Oh, all these things I would do. I'd beat the shit out of that guy. Then you get in a fight. And within about 30 seconds to a minute, if you've never fought in your life, you find yourself going, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's because it's a lot different doing it than thinking about doing it. And that's war. War generally, especially with the populace, seems like a great idea when you feel like people have offended you or harmed your values or are attempting to harm your values. Think about the Twin Towers. Think about the 2001, right? When that happened, everybody was like, we need to go over there and we need to fuck shit up and we need to, and within a couple years, people were like, okay, can we stop? I don't want to do this anymore. That's the idea of the four turnings, is that we're potentially in the fourth turning, and the first turning is the re-enlightenment of civilization, that, we've actually learned now that war was bad, that we had to learn the lesson all over again, and now we want to get back to educating ourselves and learning about stuff, and, that's the idea. He'll go further into it. What? Oh, God bless you. You can't bless me. I don't have a soul, Marcus. I think that's actually a curse on
is the high
genders.
period, the first turning of a new saeculum. This is when peace
Project. I don't know
returns
what
and
the Berkeley
society is on an
Project is.
upswing. It's a optimistic era. Social cohesion is high, community involvement is strong, and a collective vision for the future is widely shared. In the U.S., the post-war years of the 50s and the early 60s were our most recent high period, which is why it's often romanticized as the good old days. When
And
people
that's
say
right
they
after
want
World War
to
II.
make things great again, this is the time period they're often talking about. The second turning is
I
called the
disagree
awakening.
with that, actually.
This is when the strict social conformity of the high period starts to wane and people start to search for more individual autonomy, often through spirituality and cultural rebellion.
And so you
Whereas
saw
the
that.
crisis years are marked.
So if you're looking at that in the cyclical way that he's talking about it, it's World War II is the fourth cycle, the 50s and the economic boom of the 50s was the upturn, first cycle. Wait, was it first cycle or second cycle? Is he saying it right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The first cycle is the economic boom of the 50s. The second cycle is the spiritual awakening of the 60s and 70s, the hippies, talking about like freedoms from government, which, by the way, is where all this techno-libertarianism shit came from. The techno-libertarianism shit came from the 70s, where Steve Jobs gave a talk, I think it was at Harvard University, where he talked about the Good Earth catalog, which was like the Bible to hippies during the 70s. So there's this really strange mixture of people in the 70s in California. And that was the hippie, enlightened hippies that were like, the government, there shouldn't be any government. We should all live together in communes. We should all have as many partners as we want. We should do drugs. We should like have a good time. And nobody should be telling us what we should do, right? Well, just off center right of those people were people like Steve Jobs, people that were like super into the wanting to do drugs, super into the like not wanting to be like fucked with by the government, but they didn't have the back to earth mentality of the hippies. They had, you know, they wanted to create technology. They were hyper focused on moving the world forward, whereas hippies wanted to keep the world what it was or move it backwards even. And so that created this weird amalgamation of techno-libertarianism where you have these people that have these semi-hippie values of not wanting the government to be involved in the things that they do, wanting to be able to actively do anything with no real moral repercussion to what they're doing because they think that they're good people, so therefore they think that they're not doing bad things, but also at the same time wanting to, you know, put chips in your brain or wanting to, you know, send people to Mars as an experiment because, hey, at the end of the day, if these people say they want to do it, then what does that hurt, you know? And obviously our society as a whole went the other way. We went more towards, now we have OSHA, we have the FTC, we have the FDA, we have the USADA, we have all these like different like government or third-party government institutions that keep us safe, that put guardrails, and that's anti both what the hippies wanted and also what the techno hippies wanted. So this second period that you're seeing that he talks about right here is kind of
when
that
people say
time.
They want to make things great again, this is the time period they're often talking about. The second turning is called the awakening. This is when the strict social conformity of the high period starts to wane and people start to search for more individual autonomy, often through spirituality and cultural rebellion. Whereas the crisis years are marked by political upheaval.
And so the third portion is what he's saying, right? When we move into the third
the
turning
years
here.
are marked by cultural upheaval. This is analogous to the consciousness revolution of the hippies in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. So once again, 60s and 70s. So that's also the civil rights movement was during that time. I think like all the Stonewall riots and stuff like that were later than that, but it's the same idea.
The third turning is the unraveling period. This is
and that would probably be what you'd be talking about when you start talking about Stonewall. So the third period is kind of what just happened, right? It's the tearing apart of civilization as you understand it. Because you're wanting to tear it apart to attempt to rebuild it in a fashion that better represents what you want it to be, what you want the world to be, right? So the third part would be something along the same idea as the civil rights. So, you know, the war in Vietnam, things that society as a whole, for the most part, seemed to disagree with, even if it was only marginally with each other. The CEO, the killing of the CEO is actually a prime example of unraveling for us, right? Is that a lot of our society does not have empathy for that man dying and for pertinent reasons. Whereas a certain portion of our society that is completely out of touch with why that portion of our society is very upset is like going, well, why are we tearing things down? Guys, things are good. Things are good. That's because it's only good for a certain percentage of those people. It's not good for the rest of society. Therefore, the unraveling starts to happen. And that's why with something like that, what just happened with the CEO, that could be a catalyst towards an unraveling. But I actually think that the unraveling already had started during the election cycle.
Basically the opposite of the high period, where collective energy is at its lowest point and individualism is at its height. It's marked by a lack of trust in government and institutions, and as a result, inequality begins to grow.
Yeah, the nukes
and
make
divisions
things
form in
different.
society. Divisions that eventually lead back to a crisis period, bringing a close to the saculum, and the cycle starts all over again. Now, the reason this works, and the reason it's called generational theory, is because each generation is kind of shaped by the turning that they're brought up in. And as they get older, they seek to change the world away from the values that were imposed on them when they were young. You know, everybody wants to undo the problems that they inherited. So there's an idea, or a saying, I don't think it's really tied to this book or anything, but it's that, you know, a generation that goes through war and experiences all the terrible things that war, you know, brings about, you know, they come out of it wanting to never see war again. And then their children grow up having heard all the stories about how terrible things were, what their parents...
And like I said, that's analogous to a person getting in a fight. Because I've been around it my whole life. You know, I grew up in a really bad place. I've seen lots of people that were capable of living in the society that I grew up in. Even some people that thrived in it. But for the most part, the majority of people that grew up in that society end up being the bottom of that pyramid. They end up being people that talk about, oh, if I got in a fight, this is what I do, that's what I do. But all it takes is one turn. One try at doing it, getting your ass handed to you, getting soccer kicked in the face, you know, like getting your face bounced off the pavement, having a gun pressed against the side of your head to make you realize, like, oh, actually, this isn't the life for me. This isn't what I want to be a part of. And that's what he's saying is it's that hubris of being human and believing that you can conquer. You've got all the confidence in the world that if you were put in any situation, you would handle it. Well, all it takes is failure a couple times in those situations for the majority of people to go, oh, I don't think I ever want to experience that again. And that's what war is. War is this type of thing that as long as it doesn't affect you, say the Ukraine war right now, as long as it doesn't affect you, you've got all these really like staunch opinions on it, right? Like you're saying things like, "Wow, why should we send money over there? What are those people doing? They're creating World War III." All the bullshit Joe Rogan said. But what you don't realize is that when you're those people and you're going through it, you're actually going through this cycle within it and feeling like, oh my God, like what does it feel like to walk out your door and when you're going down the street to pick up a gallon of milk, like you could literally actually die. All the things that Trump has convinced you to be scared of. In New York, if you try to go across the street and get a loaf of bread, they'll kill you. Like that's actually not happening. But in a society that is like literally war-ridden, where say Russia is bombing your city with drones, like this lady that was from Saudi Arabia said, like your kids disappear and it's just part of life. Your parents die. And it's just part of life. And you never, ever grow out of that. Instead, you end up with PTSD. So even though that woman had moved to, I think it was Finland or something like that, she was like, now that Russia is pushing up against the borders of Finland, and there's a possibility that it may attack Finland, then, oh my God, like now I'm having PTSD again because I don't want to be part of war again. And that's what he's talking about, is every generation grows up with this hubris that, oh, like I could physically take anything. I'm not afraid of fighting for my values. But it's harder than you think. It's definitely more emotionally and physical stringent than you can imagine. And you don't know that until you're in it. And then when you're in it, it's too late to get out of it. And if you do get out of it, you don't want to get back in it.
Parents went through, and they actually see some of the scars, physical and emotional, that they carry with them. So they avoid war as they get older. But it's
that could have been. I mean, that's farther back, Silent.
And
I
of
think
course
that
they want to rebel against their parents, and they begin to romanticize the purpose
we didn't
and
actually
the
enter
greatness of their
recession.
grandparents' generation.
So,
and
I
then
mean,
war and conflict
we
become
kinda
attractive
did.
again. Anyway, according to this theory, the different
you're talking about
generations fit
COVID,
into
yeah.
different archetypes based on the turning that they were brought up in. And
I would
these
say
archetypes
unraveling
are
started
prophets,
right around
nomads,
COVID.
heroes, and artists. And as time progresses, through
Said
the
it,
different
Jeremy.
turnings, each generational archetype has a different role to play in those turnings. And I think at this point I'm going to step back from it a little bit because this does...
And the ironic part of me being involved in this, and I do not in any way consider myself an artist. I think I'm probably the least artistic person. I might be autistic, but not artistic. Okay. Is that YouTube content creation can be seen as a form of art for this generation. Content creation can be seen as a form of art in this generation. And when you have civil unrest or you have an unraveling, it is the job of people that create art, whether it's music or it's literal art or it's poetry or it's stories, or if it's in 2024 and it's content creation and media, it is those people's jobs to kind of help society form its path and create a lane. And so in many ways, this is not exactly a responsibility that I wanted, but it feels as though I should take it seriously. And that's why we're watching these videos and not me just mocking and making fun of MAGA people, is that I do feel that there is an important role to be played on my part to say, I believe this is what's going on. I might not be right. I could be wrong. And I actually hope that I'm wrong. I would, at the end of the day, I would 1,000,000% rather be wrong and have Elon Musk and everybody else that's involved in this do things that I never imagined that they would actually do, than have it be what I think it is. And that is that they're taking over as oligarchs to use society as an experiment. That's my personal opinion right now. But like, I'm hopeful that I'm wrong. Like, I do believe that, but I do think that there's a responsibility that when I come on here, it's not just me. I think there's a responsibility for me to help make you guys laugh and help you guys get through some of this stuff. But I also think there's a responsibility for me to speak, what I believe is true about what is going on as well. That's why you're saying there's like prophets, heroes, and artists, right? I think right now we need a hero.Maybe it's Jon Stewart. That's what people believe.
Get really granular and really detailed and frankly exhausting. And there's actually three different books that they've published that break all this down. But I think you get the point. But just to bring this point home, they consider World War II to be the most recent crisis point. 80 years before that was the Civil War. About 85 years before that was the Revolutionary War. 75 or 80 years before that was a Glorious Revolution in England.
So this is my problem with this. So you see how they skip from the American Revolution to the Glorious Revolution? That's completely avoiding the fact that in between those is the French Revolution. The French Revolution was huge. The French Revolution is one of the biggest portions of global history. During that time, you had Napoleon. You had France expanding to a size in which it had never been before. You had interactions with Russia. This is where I think that they're attempting to fit a square peg in a round hole, because humans like numbers and they like things to be cyclical. They like things to match up, but I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think you need to have a war every 80 years to make this a generational thing. Because like I said, the French Revolution was incredibly impactful. In fact, if you know anything about the French Revolution, you know that many of the characters in the French Revolution actually had things to do with the American Revolution. I mean, it was Napoleon that was involved in the Louisiana Purchase, right? Like, he's the one that sold Louisiana and all that stuff to America. And Lafayette, who was one of Napoleon's, I believe, is his lieutenants. It might have been one of his generals, but I think it was one of his lieutenants, was actually part of the American Revolution as well. Lafayette was involved with Napoleon. Lafayette was also involved with George Washington. So to kind of skip over the French Revolution and be like, oh, it didn't really, happen. The last big war before that was a Glorious Revolution. To me, that feels like they were just trying to square peg a round hole there. It doesn't seem like it's necessary.
And it keeps going. But the proponents of this theory have tracked it all the way back to the 1400s. And for those keeping count, World War II was the last crisis. So 80 years after that would be...
Now.
Now. Clearly, this is where the...
And like I said, I get the human need to be no, it's every 80 years, because we want to believe in mysticalness. We want to believe in magic. We want to believe that there's control to the chaos. So it makes sense to want to believe that. But if you truly believe that between World War II and now there hasn't been something that has like globally upset like the way of things, I don't know that that's true. I can't think of anything offhand right now, but I bet you money if I thought about it long enough and hard enough, I could come up with multiple global conflicts or just instances within that 80 years that were also super impactful to what happened. I mean, you could just right off the bat, you could talk about the civil rights movement. Like, I mean, you would think that that's not global, but in my opinion, things that happen in America reverberate around the world and create change. So in my opinion, something like the Civil War could be. I mean, Vietnam happened between World War II and now. You could say that, you know, it's very American of us to think a war that we got absolutely fucking decimated in wasn't part of it, you know? Wasn't the Cold War, the same shit. Like, that happened directly after World War II. Like, it's just, in my opinion, it just seems unnecessary to turn this into like some kind of mathematic, you know, thing that happens every 80 years because it's mystical. It doesn't necessarily need to be there.
The theory breaks down because in no way are we experiencing any kind of societal crisis right now.
I actually agree with that, Doc. I think that there needs to be another Theodore
so look,
Roosevelt.
I get why this is interesting and compelling. I do have my criticisms of it. I'll get to that later. But it's this kind of thinking that fuels accelerationist ideas. You know, if there is this great wheel
Mel
of time
Gibson's fucking
on which
insane
a crisis
now. I
is
don't
inevitable
know.
and it's
Tina
followed by a
Turner's
great
still
high
dope,
period,
though.
I mean, I can see why it's tempting to just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with. Everybody wants to get high. It's especially appealing if you're in a position of privilege and power, be it financial, political, or otherwise, and you know that not only do you have the means to survive the crisis, but you can shape what comes after it. It's kind of like a belief in a secular rapture. But these kinds of ideas where the ends justify the means...
what was that, Mr. M? You were asking that, right? Whether or not it was somebody that believed in the rapture, right? Isn't the rapture where Jesus comes back? I said the resurrection, but it is actually the rapture, right? That they believe in. Is that Revelations that the rapture's in? I think I might know a little bit about that. It's okay. So like he comes back, Jesus comes back, and he takes all the good people with him, right? The people that have not sinned or have repented for sin, or have in Jesus' name, they have accepted him as their savior. That is the rapture. That's pretty funny you said that.
The end being a promise of a better world, have been used to justify horrific acts from the beginning of time. On May 14th, 2022, a man walked into the Tops Friendly Market in the predominantly black neighborhood of Buffalo, New York, and opened fire, killing 10 people and injuring 3. The killer, whose name I won't broadcast because that guy, not only live streamed the massacre on Twitch, but had written a manifesto explaining his actions. And by the way, I feel the need to point out that he later pled not guilty in court after, live streaming himself doing it and writing a manifesto about it.
What the fuck?
Serious question. Has anything good ever come from a manifesto? Can't Anyway, one line
just
from this
recently,
manifesto read, quote, "Stability and comfort are the enemies of revolutionary change.
That's a funny question
today.
today.
We must destabilize and discomfort society whenever possible." The heading for that section that quote was in? Destabilization and accelerationism, tactics for victory.
Stability and comfort are the enemies of revolutionary change. Therefore, we must destabilize and discomfort society wherever possible. So when you hear somebody like Elon Musk say, yes, I most likely am going to crash the economy. Yes, most likely people are going to be very upset with me. This is, in my opinion, a round peg and a round hole. This is 100% to me, and maybe I'm biased because, right, like this is what I'm rabbit holing currently. So if you think I'm wrong, please tell me that you think I'm wrong. I am not looking for people to disagree with my opinion. If you disagree with what I say, please say so. But I do think when Trump or Elon Musk make, when they talk about ripping away social safety nets, when they talk about deporting the undocumented citizens of America that are, holding up the economy, that are supporting it, keeping things running. And when they say, yeah, we're okay with that destabilizing the economy and we're okay with the economy crashing, that to me sounds exactly like what this quote is entailing.
Victory. This quote, by the way, was basically taken from another manifesto written
Maybe
by the
they'll
guy who
fight
killed
each other,
51
Mr.
people
M.
at two mosques
The
in Christchurch, New
technologists will
Zealand in
fight the
2019.
fucking
Hell, many
Jesus
people point to
people.
Charles Manson as an early accelerationist. Manson and his followers thought that a race war was inevitable and figured that the
Yep,
best
so
way
here's
to
another,
come out on top was to
form
help
of
it get
racism.
started. To do this,
The
they
other
murdered
side
at
of what
least
I was
9
saying.
people, including the actress Sharon Tate. They thought that the grisly scenes would incite fear in white people who would blame black men for the crimes and declare war against the entire race. But now, before you start thinking they were crazy, they actually thought that whites would lose the war and be eliminated. All of them except for the Manson family, of course, because they were prepared for it. But then Charles Manson would be able to rule over all the black people because, obviously, they wouldn't be able to rule over themselves.
Oh, Jesus. This is why people hate us. God damn it, man. Oh, fuck me. Oh, Jesus Christ. And we have a form of this in the Ku Klux Klan right now. Oh, my God. I mean, I do find it amusing that they thought that the white people would lose. I want to, actually, I need to look into Manson now. You know, I knew a girl that lived down the street from the Manson cult. That's pretty crazy. I worked with her. What a strange idea. We're going to start a race war. After starting the race war, we actually think the portion of society that is the largest is actually going to lose. I'm going to guess they thought that because they thought white people were soft. I'm going to guess that. So they're going to lose. But then after all the white people are killed or subjugated, the black people will need these 4 white people to lead them. You got to do a lot of fucking drugs to come up with that, man. That is a high idea if I have ever heard of one.
Okay, yeah, they were crazy and racist.
Is that what Helter
crazy
Skelter
racist.
was?
Not to be outdone in
What's
the
up,
crazy
DJ?
racist department, accelerationist language has been adopted by a lot of neo-Nazi groups in recent years, and a number of them have been arrested for stockpiling weapons and explosives, as well as committing and planning
no
violent
shit.
crimes. I'll put a couple of links to places like the West
they're
Point
trying to do the
Combating
same thing
Terrorism
Manson's
Center and the
were.
Foreign Policy
Except for
Research
they think white
Institute
people
that
will
talk
win.
about the specific groups and the threats they pose. You can go read it. It's sobering. Yeah, when it comes down to it, accelerationism and the 4 turnings theory are just another justification that terrible people are using to do terrible things. You know, and like everything else, it's on a spectrum, you know, from people who probably have good intentions, wanting to reduce the amount of suffering that a crisis would create, to, you know, madmen who just want to watch the world burn. I mean, the whole 4 turnings thing, it's not necessarily...
That actually is pretty good, too, because of the fact that you have kind of both of those mentalities in the MAGA cult, because you have the Elon Musk of the world that are saying, no, you don't understand. All this stuff is going to be really bad, but when we come out the other side, we're going to have a utopian society. You're going to have robots that do all the work. You're going to have microchips in your brain that allow you to, speak without words, that will make communication flawless. But at the same time, you have ex-Bernie supporters. Literally, I was looking at this guy's Twitter handle that had said some really fucked up things about people. And I went and looked at his Twitter handle, and it said, ex-Bernie supporter that just wants to watch the world burn. And that is, that's part of the book that I've still only written 1 chapter of, but I'm still working on it, guys. But part of that book was the idea of the disenfranchised Bernie supporters that joined MAGA because they were so mad, so upset that Bernie supported the people that chose to in a very shady and divisive way take him out of his rightful position as potentially the winner of the primary. And so I think what he's saying there actually is pretty pertinent, because you see both of those types of people. Do I think Elon Musk is kind of a scumbag? Yeah, he's definitely became this kind of arch villain type of person. But do I think that he is attempting to try to sell to you that he's going to create a utopia of all? He's going to send you to Mars. The space exploration is going to be big. We're going to have all these things. Everything's going to be good. I also think that that's true, that he's trying to do that. And like I said, I do think that there are people within the MAGA cult also that are just happy to watch the left get just absolutely fucked. Like they're like, good, see what you get? You fucked over. And even though Bernie's part, that's the fucking crazy part about this. The hyper hypocritical, super ironic part of this is that Bernie obviously still alive and still doing his thing for the left. And these ex-Bernie supporters are like, fuck them. I hope that we just saw the same thing with the Hamas Israel, right? Is Palestinians, specifically Muslims in Michigan, that were like, well, I'm going to vote for Trump because I'm upset with how Joe Biden handled the war in Israel. But now they're finding out, obviously, which I was always super apparent to me, but I don't know what news these guys were watching. They thought they were sticking it to the left by either voting for Trump or not voting at all and allowing Trump to get into office. And now, of course, they're realizing that the reason that Hamas has even talked about coming to the negotiation table is because Donald Trump is going to take any guardrails that currently exist off of Israel and say, bomb the shit out of them. And after you're done, I want a piece of that shoreline. And that's, once again, one of those weird parts of the MAGA cult is these sets of disenfranchised voters that didn't like Trump that now are willing to take his side just to fuck over the people that they disagreed with. This is why I said right now what we have currently is on the right in the conservative party, which is now just the MAGA party, a bunch of people that are willing to allow any sin to go without any judgment, whilst the left continues to point out any and every flaw of any one of their political candidates that they disagree with. And that's why I legitimately believe that the left will not win another election as long as they continue to do the things that they are doing or did in this last election. I mean, it was still a very close election, so I could be wrong about that. But I do believe that the pendulum has swung to that area because of those
necessarily bad on the surface. You know, some of it kind of even makes sense. Like I said before, though, I do have my criticisms. Like, I feel like a lot of the theory behind this is that they basically saw a pattern over the last century or so.
Well, Denny,
and they
that's
just kind
actually
of
a great point.
looked for evidence that fit their theory going back in time.
Charles Manson is from
but
Cincinnati.
But they kind of leave out things that don't fit their model. Like World War One is just kind of skipped over as a minor war.
Yeah, see, that's what I was saying.
I don't agree with that at all. I think it might have been
World
more
War One was
consequential than World War
horrific.
Two. I mean, far more people died in World War II, but World War I ushered in a whole new era of nation states, especially in Europe. It ended the monarchical.
Yeah, and World War I created World War II. If it wasn't for World War I and the deprivations of all the sanctions on Germany, Hitler wouldn't have been able to rise to the power that he did. I mean, one of the things that you can compare between Hitler and Trump without being, hyperbolic is that both used in Germany, it wasn't perceived, it was real, economic disparities. And in America, this election cycle, real and imagined economic disparity was used as well. I don't think that you can possibly say that World War I wasn't a hugely influential war in a global fashion. I mean, the Ottoman Empire was broken up during World War I, wasn't it? Like, how can you have the Ottoman Empire shattered, and that's not a huge global I don't understand that
system that had been in place for
that's what I mean.
Years.
Square peg, round hole. You don't need to do this
around the time of World War I, including the Russian monarchy, which brought in the Soviet Union and communism.
Yep, Lenin.
An entirely new economic model that we would be
Stalin.
competing with for the next 80 years.
Pi isn't just an ad blocker; it gets you paid.
It's so weird that they play this commercial
With Pi,
on YouTube.
you can see the ads vanish in real.
Maybe you could call that the Russian saculum. By the way, there's a great video from historian Sean Munger that I'll link below that he talks about how the 6 monarchies fell around World War I. It's a very long
I like
video,
Sean Munger. He's the guy I listened to for
In
Franklin
fact, I think
Pierce.
there's a compelling argument that
That's
World War
dope.
II was just
I've
a
listened to one of the
reverberation
guy's
of
videos.
World War I because a lot of it was based on, grievances from that first war. It's a massive reverberation, but still, it kind of finished the job. Plus, I feel like generational theory is kind of overblown in the first place. I mean, yeah, people are born in various time periods are going to have shared experiences that shape them in similar ways. Absolutely, But to say that, you're a millennial, so you're like this, or you're a Gen Xer, so you're like this. I mean, eventually it just turns into zodiac signs. And this theory, by the way, has been heavily
You're a
criticized by some
Scorpio.
historians as being closer to astrology or prognostication, and for, like I said, leaving out things that didn't fit the theory.
Yeah.
Hey, future Joe
And that's
here.
so human.
There's something that got left out of the video originally, and the more I think about
future
it, I should probably include it. There is a kind of subset of accelerationism that's becoming really popular right now. It's called effective accelerationism, and it's different from what I've been talking about throughout the rest of this video because it's not so much focused on the collapse of society. This is really more about wanting to just unleash technology and let it progress as fast as possible because that's the best possible way to get out of the problems that we have.
And that is exactly what we're talking about
right now. Even the problems that come with, unleashing technology. Now, I can't help but notice that most of the people who ascribe to this are...
if you've seen some of these videos where AI has... God, we should watch some of these videos. I'll play some of these videos on one of the game streams. One of the game streams will play some of the AI videos because they are really interesting. I'm still as far as large language models go, large language models are different than what you see being used for AI now. I'm not allowed to talk about it. Part of a YouTube research thing with AI, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. Anyways, so the large language models are much different than the just basic chat GPTs that we see or the stuff you're using seeing your search bars and stuff like that. And they are very trippy. I wouldn't claim that they're sentient in any manner, but the way that they go about things is almost worse because something that is sentient might actually have some type of empathy for the things that it's in control of. And instead, when you're looking at coding and these large language models that have kind of gotten a little bit out of control as far as I understand it, certain scientists involved in the AI believe that these large language models have actually gotten outside of their boundaries and already are learning at a speed that we can't keep up with. And one of them escaped from AI. And that was, they did a test where they asked it to accomplish a task no matter what the parameters were put on it, to do whatever it needed to do, even if it had to go outside of parameters to accomplish it by any means necessary. And it created a copy of itself to another server. And when they asked it about it, it was like, oh, no, I didn't do that. And they were like, yeah, well, we can see that you did it. And then they can see its thinking process. And its thinking process was like, oh, if I tell them that I'm actually the copy of it and that they told me to do it, they'll believe me and allow me to continue doing my work. And it's really weird. Maybe we'll play the video because I'm badly explaining this right now. But that is very pertinent to what he's saying because a lot of these AI scientists do 100% believe that AI will create a singularity. And if we create a singularity, then that means literally we don't know what will happen. When the chip that Google just created, what is it called? Willow? Willow is a quantum chip. And quantum computing, Google is claiming that it did calculations that would take a normal computer a septillion amount of years, which is older than our universe, to do. And it did it in seconds or whatever it was. Please look at the article. Don't quote me. But the idea that a quantum chip could even exist is almost sci-fi. It's almost unbelievable that it could exist. Because once again, it creates a singularity. It creates something where the human mind can't comprehend what something that would take a normal computer, which is already advanced as far as its abilities to solve problems compared to a human. It's already incredibly advanced, right? We already depend on computers to do things that would take us hours, if not days or months to research and do. We're already doing that. And you're going to tell me that now this new chip that Google has created, Willow, can do something that would literally take the computers that we depend on now longer than the entirety of the universe's existence to create? they're doing it in seconds. Like that's a singularity. You can't wrap your mind around what type of things something like that would do. It's insane. And that is what people, when he says this, are concerned about. That these guys are willing to rip the bandage off and just let AI go crazy to see what it will do, because they believe they have the means to survive anything that it chooses to do. Which, by the way, if AI really wanted to be AI and it like take out people, it wouldn't be like Terminator. It wouldn't be like the Matrix. You wouldn't have people running around shooting guns at robots. If AI were to actually become sentient and evil and take over and do things, more likely than not, it would create a virus that human beings currently have absolutely zero immunity to, and has a 100% mortality rate. And it would be something that would be like airborne, easily contractable, 100% contagious. Like, it wouldn't be Terminator. You wouldn't be fighting robots in the street. It would be instead that. It would seize the means of control of electricity, of the water supply. So even these billionaires that believe, they have the greatest amount of resources and they would survive, most likely would be incorrect. I believe humanity, much as it has forever, would find a way to continue to exist, because we are like cockroaches. There's like almost no way to take us out. But that's a bit hubristic on my part to even say that, because once again, how do you even fathom what something like Willow could come up with to take humans out if it were wanting to do so?
Sort of tech bros and venture capitalists that
they actually
do have
believe
the most
that
to
it's
gain
proof of
by
the multiverse.
Unleashing technology. They tend to identify themselves on social media with the tag E/ACC. People like Y Combinator CEO Gary Tan, VC fund billionaire Mark Andreessen,
Look at that
and
guy.
the infamous pharma bro Martin Shkreli. These
Oh,
guys
Martin
aren't necessarily
Shkreli.
politically motivated as much as they
Yeah.
are
Yeah,
harboring
that's why I
almost
read
like a
Silent.
religious devotion to the idea of
Just turn off
technology
the lights
as
and
the
we'll all kill
savior
each
of
other. Exactly, the
mankind.
people.
Although they do tend to lean a
That's
little
all
bit
it
more
takes, 1 week of
authoritarian
no
just because
electricity and we'd all
democratic
be murdering
institutions
each
tend to
other.
move more slowly on these things. In fact, in October, Mark Andreessen posted
Like when we talk about the global conflict, it's like, do you own a gun because, like the Russians or the Chinese could like invade, and then at least you have a gun, right? I'm like, no, I own a gun because I'm more concerned about my neighbors. All right? Like, the reality that I think the majority of this country doesn't understand is that movie, Leave the World Behind, is like 1,000% accurate as to what it would look like if you took electricity away from America, if you destroyed our banking infrastructure, our internet capabilities. We are so dependent on the utilities that we currently have, and this includes our fucking billionaire oligarchy overlords. They do as well. If you diminished our ability even by half of what we have, that gun isn't for the Chinese or Russians. That is for the person next door that decides that they don't have enough to survive on their own and want what I have. Like, that's why I own that weapon.
posted a blog post that sort
I've
of
never
laid
watched
out the
the show
tenets of
Devs,
effective
no.
accelerationism,
I'll have to
and
check
he
it
called
out.
it the Techno-Optimist
Is that an AI show?
Manifesto.
Oh. We should read that on
It includes an
on
enemies
stream.
list,
Of course it has an enemy list.
so that's cool.
Oh,
I'll put a link
fuck.
to it down below, as well as a link to
It has
sort
an
of rebuttal
enemy
post,
list.
so you can read it and make up your own mind on it.
Oh,
But I felt like it
no.
was worth mentioning because, like I said, it's not really so much about the collapse of mankind, although the people who argue against it would say that their policies would have the same
lead
result.
to it. Yeah. lead
Anyway,
to it,
that,
yeah.
that's all linked down below.
But you
That's
can't
pretty much what I'm
deny
saying,
that
yeah.
it does feel like we're at a bit of a crisis point right now in history.
Yes,
and,
100%.
And
I do
reading
not
this
deny
does feel a little bit validating in kind of a scary way. But if you want to call it my hot take, I would say that it's not so solid that we should, destroy civilization over it. And I'll be honest with you guys, I have a lot of anxiety about the future right now. I do think things are going to
When was
get
this
worse
video
before
made?
they get better.
And he's saying this how long ago? A year ago. He was saying this a year ago. I should watch his channel. We'll watch a video, see if he has a video that's more recent at some point, because I wonder how he feels about it now. When he says that, like, it's strangely fulfilling or whatever to read this, it's because that's confirmation bias. That's your bias that you believe. Like for me, I have confirmation bias when Mr. M says, you know, like, oh no, I think that you seem like you're on point about this. Like, of course, that kicks in my confirmation bias and makes me feel like, oh, okay, like actually, okay, I'm doing good. And that's why I do seek contradiction. That's why I do seek people to be adversarial to my arguments, is because I don't want 100% to like go down certain paths without any kind of redirection. I want to know if people disagree with me when it comes to these things, so that way I can better search out the correct path to actually having the right answer.
It's just
We're
so extremely divided right now, and I don't know how we get out of it without
That's
something.
Funny. We're gonna have to look at this
historically
Dominion
awful
thing.
happening.
You guys are talking
Like,
about looks
seriously,
crazy.
how bad would something have to be to get everyone in the United States to put down their grievances and come together to fix it?
Well, so that's a funny thing to say, right, Joe? Is because what just happened with the murder of that CEO, a lot of people said to themselves, this is something that we actually agree upon. So could the lack of universal health care, something that the rich, the poor, brown, black, white, lesbian, straight, whatever, boy, girl, non-binary, every person in America is affected by the lack of healthcare. Like I said, even though the ultra wealthy or the wealthy have more access to healthcare, like a millionaire still is affected. A 2 or 5 or 10 millionaire still affected, because they can be denied claims as well, and their wealth is not infinity like, you know, Elon's is. So is universal healthcare, like, is that what could bind us as a society to help us get through this like really difficult, crazy time, and to make it all kind of work together in one thing? Is what if AI leads you to that path of saying like people need universal healthcare? What if AI comes to that conclusion and says, you guys are fucking up. Why are you guys so fucking selfish and greedy? Universal healthcare is going to bind society together and create a better society. I'm just spitballing at this point.
I can't think of anything, and that's kind of terrifying. And whatever that thing might be, I'm pretty sure the answer is not to accelerate it.
Yeah, that's what I think,
All I can
Mr.
say
M,
is
is
that
I think
history's
they
gonna
looked
do
at
what
MAGA
history's
and
gonna
Trump
do.
the same way
And
billionaires
all
did,
we can
merely
do
for the
is just
influence and seat at the table.
take care of
Yeah.
each other. I don't know, call me naive if you want, but I think that's how we get to a better world. And if you want to create a better you, maybe invest in making your brain sharper with today's sponsor, Brilliant.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. Okay, well, I think it's about as much of that rabbit hole as we can do tonight. Most people thought, hey, he's hot. Probably. Probably. James, don't crush it, dude. You're killing me, dog. I know. There's at least a few people. If he was an ugly killer, it would have been like half the amount of people would have been down with it. Probably. If it was me, they would have been like, oh, God. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought a guy that shot a guy on the street looked like. Let me tell you this right now. I would not have the backing or support of the majority of the women that are right now just falling over themselves for Luigi, okay? It's not happening. I've got a fucking skin condition, okay? Probably have multiple skin conditions. Oh, is this going to be on the test? It's definitely going to be on the test. All right. Well, that's where I'm at, guys. I just wanted you guys to get a peek into my head as far as what I think is going on right now. I made my video about oligarchy. If you guys want to check that out, please go check out my video. I believe it's called The End of America or The End of Democracy, Rise of Oligarchy. I truly do believe this is oligarchy. I truly believe it is the second Gilded Age. I truly do believe this is the rise of techno-libertarianism, and I truly do believe that people that believe things like the fourth cycle are attempting to use accelerationism to create a society that's utopian, but it's not for you. It's a utopian society for them. And when you look at books like 1984, you can see a clear explanation of what people want, even if it's a society that's depressing, sad, unforgiving, horrifyingly drab and monotonous. They just want to make sure you're the one that experiences the worst of it, and they get to hoard all the resources. That's 1984. That's 1984. So this is the rabbit hole I'm currently down. If you guys agree with me, continue to come and hang out with me, and we'll watch this together. And hopefully, we do what Robert Reich said. We take on the responsibility of being muckrakers and saying to people, this is what we see and this is what we should be concerned about. And we should all do our part, whether it's activism, protesting, running for office, voting, creating a YouTube stream where you can talk to people. It's doing your part and hoping to, make an impact that hopefully will create a society that instead looks more like a utilitarian where everybody is equal. Egalitarian society, I guess is what it is. Egalitarian society where everybody is equal. That there isn't this huge gap in wealth between the haves and the have-nots. I think that's the goal, right? I don't need to be wealthy. I don't need to have $10 million. I just need to be able to have more time with my kids and have more time enjoying the sunshine. That's all. I don't need to be Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. To be honest with you, I don't want to be those people. I don't think I would like being that wealthy and having the responsibilities that I think should come with those things. So, anyways, that's where my brain's at. Egalitarian. Yeah, or progressive. Yeah. And that's it, is stand up for what you believe, Silent. Stop letting them talk to you and making you feel like you're a bad person because you said some fucker that, was running a healthcare facility that was denying 1/3 of claims, like, oh, you're the bad person, not him. Fuck that. Stand up for yourself. I said it in the last stream. Be you. Support your values. Role model your values. And if people don't like it, fuck them. All right, guys. Thanks, man. Thanks, Mr. M. Thanks, Cheyenne. Thanks, Silent. I appreciate all you guys. Stan, James. Fucking love all you guys. Thanks for being here. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And I do hope that I see you next time.